Yes, yes, yes. What is up? What is up, MCR family? Another weekly edition of the show live on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. I'm Matthew Hunter. Hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, all that fun stuff. You know what to do. And this should be a fun show. I mean, we kind of a slow weekend last weekend for fights. We had the Shields pay-per-view, which we're obviously going to talk about, but that was pretty much it. It wasn't kind of a slow weekend. A big UFC pay-per-view, which obviously the boxing community wanted to avoid, and that's probably why we had a slow weekend for boxing. But this weekend, oh my God. I mean, you can argue it's one of the best fights in boxing, one of the best rematches in boxing, and we're getting it. And it's happening. It kind of just like snuck up on us, I feel like. It just all of a sudden it's here. And it's been like a factor of like COVID and all that with promotion. It feels like fights sneak up on us a lot lately. And I kind of like that, I'll be honest. But obviously we have Juan Francisco Estrada versus Roman Gonzalez, the rematch going down to Zone. I cannot wait. Magnifico. But anyways, I'm joined on this lovely show, as always, with the one and only Gary in Dallas. Gary, how are you?
I'm thinking about going to the fight, right? Because it's in the American Airlines Center. I'm thinking about going.
Oh, it's in Dallas. I thought it was in San Antonio.
No, it's in Dallas. I haven't decided yet.
Have they sold out tickets, or does that not matter for you?
No, they're only doing 5,000 tickets.
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. Which is cool because you kind of get like your own little mini section, right? You can get 2 tickets or 6 tickets, right? And then they block it off. So I was thinking about getting 2. And you get like your own, like, you know, it's like your own luxury box, but in a box seat, right? Like it's like, you know, there's kind of like no one around you. I'm thinking about it. I went back and I watched the first fight the other day. Man, I scored it. I have it here. 115, 113 for Chocolatito with 3 swing rounds. 2 of the swing rounds I gave to Agallo. So anywhere from a draw to 9-3, Chocolatito, I think, is the realm of reasonable scores. And the judges all kind of had it 9-3, but it could have been closer than that. I think it was 8-4, 9-3, and 9-3. It could have been closer than that. I had 7-5, but there were 3 really close rounds. I have some thoughts. I want to get into that, but let's get started.
Well, first, let's get into the fight first, because that is, like, I feel like a real big, important, meaningful fight, not just for that division, but all of boxing. Let's be honest. Like, it is one of the most meaningful fights we're going to have this year, and people need to realize that. We need to put in that proper context, that proper framing, because that's the reputation, the respect that this matchup deserves and is owed from the boxing community, and I feel like it's not really getting that, to be quite honest. I'll be honest. I think the first fight we can largely ignore. And that might be a hot take, I guess, but the fight is so long ago now. I think both fighters have improved since then, especially Estrada more so than Gonzalez, of course. And also, like, where they're at in their careers is completely different than where they fought in 2012 was 2012 or 13.
I thought it was 2013. Santiago, can you correct this? I think it's 13. It could be 12. I think it's 13. I was watching the fight in Spanish, like the Mexican broadcast against Box Azteca. I don't really know what the announcers were saying outside of a few words, but man, are they good. They generate so much excitement. It's like watching a soccer game in Europe.
By the way, I was right. 2012, motherfucker.
2012.
Yes.
Wow. 9 years ago.
It's November 2012, to be fair. But anyways, you know, I think that, again, especially Estrada, I think Estrada, the way he matches up with Gonzalez is different now than what it was 2012 when he was a up-and-coming, like, prospect in a sense, right? A contender. You know, he wasn't a guy that went on to have a Hall of Fame career, which he has now. And Roman Gonzalez, I would say, is also not where he was at in 2012, at the height of his Hall of Fame run. You know, a transcendental run in the lower weight classes. He's far removed from that. It's 2021 now. Like, it's almost a whole decade since that first fight, to put it in proper context. I think we have to almost ignore it in some fashion. I think we can analyze this fight, analyze how they fight, how they match up comparatively, just by looking at the last few fights, to be quite honest. I don't think we need to go that far back. But Gary, since you watched the fight, what are your takeaways? Do you have takeaways? Do you think they are meaningful for this rematch?
I would say Estrada is better now than he was then. Although, like, going back and watching it, I know Estrada wasn't a pound for pound cat then, but maybe he should have been. Right? Like, if you're saying Chocolatito at that time was like 1 or 2 or 3 pound for pound, which a lot of people did, Estrada was right there with them, right? Like, Estrada probably deserves to be somewhere 10 to 12 on that list, right? If you rate Chocolatito that high, which we did, and we still do. I think Estrada is better than he now than he was then. Chocolatito, I think, is largely the same fighter. The only thing is, has he aged? I mean, he didn't look aged against Caliafai, but he did take one brutal knockout and then a brutal war before that with Rung Visai.
Who's also fighting this weekend, by the way. He's fighting
yes, he is.
On his own. Remind the people. But let's be honest, I mean, I think Roman Gonzalez, if he is durable enough, should win regardless because he is simply a better fighter than Estrada. Even though Estrada has improved. Okay. The only factor that will change that is the durability, the age, the wear and tear of Roman Gonzalez. Like and it's a reality that we maybe can't ignore. You know, maybe I want to ignore it in some fashion, but it's 10 years removed from the first fight. It would be almost naive to assume that Roman Gonzalez we're going to see on Saturday is the same one we saw in 2012. It's just, it would be naive. And even though Roman Gonzalez has the style, the technique to really beat guys like Estrada, you know, guys that are just boxer punchers, Gonzalez is far better than just a pure boxer puncher, and Estrada is just a boxer puncher in some fashion. Gonzalez can move around that, can adapt to that quite well. The only reason why Rungsvad was able to beat Gonzalez in the way he did is because Rungsvad is a more unorthodox fighter than Roman Gonzalez. Okay. The only, like, if this is vintage Roman Gonzalez, the hope that Estrada has is that he has improved his fundamentals so much since that 2012 fight. His jab is maybe the best in the sport. His mid-range work is perhaps the best in the sport. His power has improved. His durability has improved. He's overall become a better, like, well-rounded fighter. So if he's able to keep this fight in his control and his range, upset the rhythm of Roman Gonzalez, he should win. And then you add the X factor that we maybe can't ignore of wear and tear, the age of Roman Gonzalez, Estrada should win this. But if you ignore that, Roman Gonzalez is the better fighter. Right? Roman Gonzalez should be able to get past the jab, work the body, but there's a part of me that cannot ignore the age, that cannot ignore that knockout that I saw in person.
So I want to say this, right? I think that there are, I think that both guys have something to gain, right? Like, I think if you said right now, their careers end today before this fight, who's the best little man of this era? It's Chocolatito. But who's the current, if you made a pound for pound list, who's on everybody's list? Estrada, not Chocolatito, right? So if Chocolatito wants to get back to that spot that he was at on the pound for pound list, he's got to beat Estrada. Estrada's the way there. If Estrada wants to be the best little man of this era, he wants to be the Ricardo Lopez of this era, he's got to beat Chocolatito. He can't lose to him twice and still think he's going to claim that title. He's got to win this fight. So each guy has something that the other one wants, right? Mm-hmm. I just thought that was interesting. Now, what I want to say about the fight was, I don't know. I've been like binge watching Estrada. I don't know that Chocolatito's the better fighter. Like, I think if they both fight their fight, I think Estrada's fight is more on the outside, giving him angles. I think he's a quicker fighter, right? If he fights that fight, he can beat him. Like, he was beating him in the first couple of rounds. If he can do that for 12 rounds, and I'm not saying he can, because he couldn't resist slugging with Kudras, right? And Kudras is a fine fighter on the inside, but he ain't Chocolatito. I think if Estrada fights a 100% disciplined fight, he can win enough rounds. But he's got to win every early round, and then he's got to have to avoid standing in with Chocolatito. Because once Chocolatito gets in his rhythm, Chocolatito wins the fight. But can Estrada sustain what he does long enough to put enough rounds in the bank?
And like the way you frame it, like I pretty much agree with you. And also, like, these guys have the kryptonite for each other in some fashion. Like Roman Gonzalez is a rhythm fighter. Like he needs to start getting into volume, getting into sort of a timing and rhythm and pace with his opponent. And the overall pressure of his offense needs to be there as well. Like he needs to be the one going forward. He needs to be the one dictating the pace and the tempo and all that stuff. But how you stop that is like a fantastic jab and great lateral movement, working angles, setting up traps. And Estrada can do that. And he's gotten a lot better at that as time has gone on. I mean, this is as close to a pick and fight as you can probably guess, right? Like I forget what the odds were. I think Gonzalez is a slight favorite, I want to say. But I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
I was like plus like 110 or 120 or something like that, I think, for Estrada. But I could be wrong on the exact odds. Santiago, Rob, somebody's going to be in the chat saying, no, these are their odds. So thank you for those who eventually do it. But I really do not oppose any analysis of this fight, any pick on this fight. If you pick a draw, go for it. Like I can see that happening too. Like most likely this fight is going the distance. Most likely this fight is going to be close and competitive and fun. Like it's going to be unlikely for this fight to end early unless Roman Gonzalez is that faded, right? And Yaffe wasn't that good. You know what I mean? Like it would be maybe an indicator of that. That still feels largely like the wrong answer in some fashion because of how good Roman Gonzalez looked against Khalid Yaffe. So,
and Yaffe is good. I mean, we can argue about how good he is, but he's obviously a top 10 guy. He's probably a top 5 guy in that division, which is a really good division, right? Like Yaffe is good.
Not top 5.
Probably not. 6, 7, 8. So he's definitely top 10. Somewhere probably between 5 and 10.
Absolutely top 10. Like he's probably better than Yoran and Cajas. Right?
Yeah.
I would say he's better than Cajas.
Cajas is more fun, right? But if they fall, Yaffe wins.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree on that pick. Do you think this goes the full distance? Like, are you picking Estrada here? What are you doing?
I would say if it ends in a knockout is because Estrada exchanged too much. Right? I think if it gets knocked out, Estrada gets knocked out.
Really?
Yeah.
Not the opposite. Not that it would be just Roman Gonzalez.
I don't think Chocolatito's that faded. I just think that Rungvisai was the wrong guy. Like just the physical force that Rungvisai was. It was the wrong style for him. I don't think Chocolatito is faded. So I think if this is knockout, it's because Agallo traded too much. So he needs to be less fighting Agallo, and he needs to be more boxing Agallo. Right? No fighting Rooster, boxing Rooster. If he boxes him, gives him angles, stays on the outside, works his jab, I think he can win this fight. My thing is that Mexican's going to kick in, right? Just like he did with Kudras, and he's going to stand it. And then he's going to give that lead up that he built up on the scorecards. And then it's like, are there enough rounds? Did he put enough rounds? No, I think this is going to be a 50-50 fight. I think we get to the scorecards. And I don't like to use the word controversial, but it's going to be a real 114, 114, 114, 113 type of decision.
I cannot wait. I love it. I love these super flyweights, man. God bless them. They are the best people in the sport, hands down, because they just give us all the fucking fights that we don't get at welterweight or middleweight.
Because you get great action, you don't have to pay them. It's a win-win.
Capitalism. Anyways, shout out to Roman Gonzalez. I hope he wins. If gun to my head, I'm probably gonna pick Estrada, right? Just because of certain X factors, and Estrada has improved, I think, dramatically since 2012. All his best fights have been since that loss. I think that's probably indicative of him learning a lot in that first fight with Roman Gonzalez. But man, my heart's with Chocolatito, man. Like, how can it not be? Like, that guy put the entire low weight classes on his back and put them into the mainstream in the boxing psyche in the US. No one else kind of did that before him. Like, honestly speaking, Gary, like maybe you or Santiago can bring up names that did transcend to the US, but largely speaking, it's been this era that has transcended from Japan and Central America to the US and on mainstream TV, mainstream networks.
Now, I remember Ricardo Lopez, but again, you had to be Ricardo Lopez fought, and he had a following, but it was all like the Spanish-speaking, the Mexican community, and you could watch his fights, but they were on Telemundo, right? Boxo Telemundo, right? I'm sure Santiago was like he tuned in, but you couldn't watch it in English. It was no English. They didn't find HBO. Yeah, I'm sure they drew a decent number, considered that it was on Telemundo, but like people like me And if you would have been old enough at that time, like you was like, all right, we're gonna watch Ricardo Lopez in Spanish. But he's the only other guy. Carbajal, but he fought on Showtime. He fought on a Tyson card. He never headlined cards. He was an attraction. He was a 108-pounder who knocked people out, right? Little hands of stone. But he never headlined cards himself. You know what I'm saying? It's like Christy Martin was a name, but she didn't headline cards like Katie Taylor headlines cards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
So I would say, he's the biggest in this country. I'm just talking about the biggest boxing star in the lower weight classes that I can remember.
Yeah, just from pure metrics, like what numbers do. And that's largely due to like the institutional support that he got at a very unique time for HBO. Right, like Roman Gonzalez is a little bit of a product of of timing. Let's just be honest about it, right? You had the sort of departure, so to speak, of the Mayweather Pacquiao era, even though obviously they have gone on to continue fighting and they haven't really left, but they kind of diminish in terms of fights and attention. It was clearly a shifting of the guard. You had the PBC Golden Boy split. It was a very fractious time in the sport, and HBO didn't have a lot of content, and they needed content. All the best content was on Showtime.
Yep. And
then obviously we got Top Rank going to ESPN and sort of flirting with other networks, and clearly HBO needed to provide other content for the boxing fans that they had. And the lower weight classes, like Gary said, were cheap because there wasn't a huge drawing exchange value with these fighters and these fights previously in terms of the market. And they generated a star, honestly speaking. Like, it was a modern day example of how HBO generates stars purely from that platform, right? And they did it with an entire weight class, if not a couple weight classes in the low weight classes, with 112, 115, 118, you can argue, all got huge bumps because of that. It's, I think, a very unique time in history, a very historic time in history that I hope 10, 20 years down the line people talk about, because I think it is very unique that it is just a product of timing that all of a sudden 115-pound fighters were now getting prime time main event slots on the network for boxing in the US market. It's insane. And also, like, not English speakers too. Like, it wasn't like they found like a US homegrown guy that was in the Olympics, kind of like the old traditional model, right, of building stars. There was
Carbajal, right? Like, Carbajal was an Olympian. He's an American. He fought. Did he win a medal? I don't remember. Did Carbajal win a medal, Santiago?
I want to say he did.
He's on the 88 team?
Yes.
I think so. I probably did. Yeah.
Roman Gonzalez, Estrada, Rungsvi, like, none of these guys are U.S. English speakers. And yet they're getting primetime main event slots in the U.S. market. It's amazing to see. It's kind of, dovetailing into maybe another topic down the line on the show. If only boxing did that for women's boxing, you would see that immediate rise and immediate growth of the product just by the institutional support in it. But regardless, I'll get to that probably later on the show. Also on this card, let me get.
I didn't give. I'm taking Chocolatito by split decision.
You are.
I'm gonna take Chocolatito. I think Estrada gets a little too brave, and Chocolatito sweeps the later rounds and takes a really, really close decision.
See, Gary, you know me too. Like, I'm a fucking raging communist, and like Roman Gonzalez is a proud Sandinista. Like, I want to support him, man. But the little voice in my head's like, no, he's too old.
I don't like. He looked great against Caliafai. Like, he looked fine. So
he did, but we have to agree that Caliafai is not Estrada. Like, it's
no, he's not.
There is an exponential difference even between those top 3 or 4 or 5 guys, especially when include Ioka in the mix, compared to the Nkajas, the Yafes, maybe like the Tanakas in this division. We have yet to see where he really pans out. There's certain guys that they're really quality opponents and they're obviously world level fighters, but that top section of the division, that truly top half of the top 10, that's something special. They're all Hall of Famers. Like, there's not a single one that's not a Hall of Famer. Like, that's the craziest part. You go down that list: Estrada, Rungsvi, Gonzalez, Ioka, they're all Hall of Famers. That's pretty unique. But anyways, I digress. I'm picking Estrada, split decision.
It's tough, because I can see either guy. This is going to be a 50-50 fight. I can't see it. I can't see us going to the cards and having no doubt on who won. I just
But to be fair, like that's kind of what we've got with a lot of these matchups with these top guys at 115. They've been close, contentious decisions.
Yeah.
Gonzalez Quadra was a close decision. I remember seeing that at the forum.
Yeah.
And there was definitely people in that arena that thought Quadras won and got robbed.
Yeah, the announcer was one of them, because remember they initially announced it for Kudras because it was 114, 113 on all three cards.
Yep.
And they announced it for Kudras, and then I guess it was the commissioner or the sanctions body jumped. It's like, no, you read the wrong name. But it was that kind of fight where it was, and I had it 114, 113 for Estrada, right? But you weren't going to argue with it either way. I think Letterman had it 114, 113. For Kudras, and I had it 114-13 with the other. It was that kind of fight.
Absolutely. It was a great fight. It is the second best fight experience I've ever had in my life. Like being there live. It's right behind Canelo Triple G #1. Like that was amazing. Like I've never obviously the forum is smaller than the T-Mobile Arena in Vegas. I think that's where the Canelo Triple G fight was. And obviously way less people. I mean, it could probably fit max for boxing, maybe let's say 12, 15,000, let's say at the forum. T-Mobile, you're looking at 25,000 people, right? So you're looking at a sizable amount, another, 33% increase in fans. And it's Canelo Triple G. And I could argue that Gonzalez Quadras was the louder event. Like it was more chaotic. Honestly speaking, I mean, the Nicaraguan and Mexican fans were going at it, man. I've never seen so many fights in the stands in my life. I'll just put it that way. Great time. Anyways, Daniel Edwards in the chat saying, will Canelo get through Billy Joe Saunders first, though? Winky face. I legit thought you were serious at first, Dan. I was about to be like, yo, don't gaslight me here. Don't do it. We're going to get to Canelo and Caleb Plant negotiations in a bit. But also on this card, Jessica McCaskill versus Cecilia Brækhus, another rematch of a Hall of Fame fighter, and Cecilia Brækhus, and a great first fight too. I'm picking McCaskill. I think Brækhus is just clearly she's on the downhill slide of her career. It's been looking that way for some time. I think it just needed that one, that one last sort of push to get her to not be the undisputed champion in the division. I think she's never going to really collect the belt again unless it's a vacant belt or something like that. Gary, your thoughts?
See, I'm kind of torn here. I picked McCaskill last time, and Matt criticized me for that.
I did.
You did.
I was wrong.
So McCaskill can be it, and I think McCaskill can win again. But part of me wants Brækhus to win, because then you have the great fight with Claressa Shields at 154. McCaskill, I guess she can go up to 154, but she's little, right? And I like McCaskill, so I want McCaskill to win too. I want Brækhus to win for Shields, but I got to meet McCaskill when she fought on the Usyk card in Chicago, and there's no ego with her. I love her story too. There's nothing not to root for Jessica McCaskill, so I want her to win. But I also want Brækhus to win because it makes it a mega fight, wins boxing. I'm kind of torn here. I'm going to pick McCaskill again, and I think it's going to be a very close decision again. But I kind of want both people to win.
I understand, but they're both great people. I've met both of them. They're very nice, pleasant people to talk to. Generally good people in the sport. And I will say this. Obviously, Brækhus wins. I think the fight with her and Shields happens. But if McCaskill wins, she's fighting Katie Taylor again in a rematch. And Katie Taylor wins at 147. Or in theory, she goes up to 147 and beats McCaskill. She beat her already. In theory, she should beat her, even at a higher weight class. And then we get Shields and Katie Taylor at 147.
You said she has to pay her $1 million to go down to 47.
Yeah, because she's going to lose her. Which I thought was such a fine line. And to be honest, if you're Eddie Hearn, why wouldn't you do that? Let's be honest. Let's go down that thought experiment, right? Of McCaskill beating Brækhus on Saturday, Katie Taylor then versus Brackus in a rematch. So Katie Taylor can win championships at 147, be the undisputed champion at 147, and be a 4-division champion already? Because she's won belts at 130, 135, and 140, right?
Yeah.
So she'd be a 4-division champion, undisputed champion at 147. If you're Eddie Hearn, that's kind of what you want, if I'm guessing. Plus, it's an in-house, in UK fight you can do, pay-per-view main event in London. You're going to do that, and then after it, I think the Shields Taylor fight is absolutely worth giving Shields $1 million. Especially if she's coming down to 147, the full cut, it's not a catch weight. Yeah, she deserves $1 million, especially when Devin Haney, we're going to get to it later, is getting paid $3 million to fight old-ass Linares, okay? And that dude hasn't won a legit champion other than the AOL champion. So, let's just be honest about this. If we get Taylor versus McCaskill and then Taylor wins, the Taylor Shields fight is absolutely worth $1 million each. Absolutely.
Yeah. But do you want to get into Clarissa Shields now? Because I got some thoughts on, or do you want to come back to that?
We can always, we can dovetail. We can do that. No problem.
I'm at the point now where I almost think Clarissa Shields is too good for her own good. And I don't mean that to be insulting to her, but I don't see anyone who can even be competitive with her, right? She's not Mike Tyson, where she's going to knock people out in a round. Yeah. She's just going to pick people apart. And she doesn't lose a round. You know what I'm saying? So she can either try to knock people out, which I don't, why would she do that? She's so good. Or I don't think anyone is going to be competitive with her, right? It's like when the Golden State Warriors got Kevin Durant, it's a wrap. You know what I'm saying? It's a wrap. Clarissa Shields is that much better than the field. It's kind of like Tiger Woods in his prime, right? Okay, it's over with. Clarissa Shields is at that level where I don't care who you put in the ring with her. She's going to win every round.
No, I mean, I'm not picking Kay Taylor to beat her, right? Even with
definitely not picking Kay Taylor. I don't hate Kay. I think Kay Taylor is good, but it's like saying who's better, LeBron James or Devin Booker? Devin Booker's great. You're not better than LeBron James. Are you kidding me?
I think Devin Booker's a little bit harsh.
Devin Booker's got game. He's got so much offensive game.
It'd be like it's a Kevin Durant, LeBron James comparison.
It's not Kevin Durant. It's not Kevin Durant.
Yes, it is.
Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant.
What are you gonna say? Kevin Durant's the best pure scorer in basketball
ever that I've ever seen.
What did he fucking do, man? He had to leave how many teams to go to the super team to win a championship? Come on.
So LeBron needed to team up with Dwayne Wade, who was the second best guard, and Chris Bosh just to beat him.
I really don't care. Oh man. I don't know what Yuda's saying in the chat there. It does make sense. I think most likely what happens is that McCaskill wins and we get that Shield Taylor fight after Taylor beats McCaskill. But in regards to your thinking of Shields is so much better than the field, I don't know really what your final point is of that. Is it that
she's not going to be in entertaining fights because she's not going to have a natural rival. She's not going to be in great fights because she just dominates whoever she fights. It's not competitive.
Well, we have to be honest here that women's boxing is still in a very much a primitive stage of development, and that's largely due to the lack of institutional support for these divisions. That's the reality. We're not going to see full fleshed out divisions in the sense of what we see in the low weight classes right now, and that had to develop over 30 years of development. Women's boxing started in the late 90s, really, for being quite honest.
Yeah.
It's going to take 30, 40 years of development to really get it going and have it be anywhere close to some men's divisions. That's just the reality.
You had Christy Martin, who beat people up and was in fun fights. She was defensively pretty bad, right? She was offensively good. She could hit a ton, and she was the bigger puncher and the stronger fighter, so she'd win, right? Then you had Ali, who was the boxer, Layla Ali, but she was in really good fights. She was in good fights. Clarissa Shields is the progression of Ali, Layla Ali, she's so good, right? I don't know how you sell that to the casual fan. She's won every round. You know what I'm saying?
Sell perfection.
Yeah.
That's what you have to sell. But the problem is that there's nothing there to help her sell. Dimitri Salita, who's a very lovely person. Okay, I've always met him a few times. A very lovely guy, always been very courteous and pleasant. But he's not a big time promoter. He's not even a mid level promoter. Like, we're being really fucking honest here. Okay, he doesn't have the cachet in the industry or the connections with networks to really get his fighters in the right spots to make them big. It's not happening. So Clarissa Shields, okay, has to get away from Dimitri Salita. That is holding her back. It is the unfortunate reality. Okay. She needs massive platforms to push her. Okay. Because of that factor, because there aren't that natural rivalries, there aren't these natural fights you can make within divisions that are going to be Hall of Fame worthy fights, because she is so much better than the field. So you have to sell her on perfection, to sell her as a brand of, this is a fighter that goes in there and she's better than anyone. She can beat anyone. Okay. Like, you do the Ronda Rousey thing where she can beat the men. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, you can be corny like that. It doesn't matter. But as long as you have big brands, big networks, big platforms pushing her forward, she will be a star. The problem is she's with Dimitri Salita on Fight.
How did Dimitri Salita, what did he pitch her that he signed her? You know what I'm saying? Like, I want to be in that sales pitch where Dimitri Salita, and no disrespect to Dimitri Salita, right? But how?
I'll be honest. From my understanding, and this is only from what I've heard from industry whispers and sources, right, is that when she was looking to get a deal, Mayweather, obviously there was that big beef between her and Mayweather, so that wasn't going to happen. Okay, Al Heyman whispers. Yeah. I mean, sources, whispers is what I've heard. Because it's Al Heyman, it has to be fucking whispers, right? That he doesn't really want to promote women's boxing. He doesn't see it as profitable. He doesn't see it for any use, so he doesn't do it. And then you're left with the Golden Boy and Top Rank.
Yeah, because Eddie really wasn't in the U.S. picture at that point.
No, he wasn't. You're absolutely right. And there wasn't a DAZN deal. Eddie didn't have match in U.S. That wasn't a thing at that time. I'm not surprised that she could never make a deal with Top Rank, for example. It's Top Rank. We sit here on the show how many times Gary and shit on Top Rank as a corporation, as an entity, right, as an outfit, and Golden Boy as well. We're talking about the two most dysfunctional companies in boxing in some sense. I'm not surprised she didn't make a deal with them. Would it be better than Dimitri Salita? Absolutely. There's no denying that. But would she be stuck with Top Rank and have Bob Arum shitting on her all the time? That's a fear.
Yeah. No, you're right about that.
Would he be signed with Golden Boy and Oscar's off doing coke and you can't have anyone?
That's what I was saying. I could see at that particular time why she wouldn't want to sign.
It was just a fucked up situation. That's the reality. There was no, this is a big time promoter combined with a big time network that is pushing women's boxing in the U.S. That didn't exist. It's being formed as we speak. We are watching the process of women's boxing being developed right now in front of our eyes. And we have to be, I think, patient with that. And there's so many fans that are angry, bitter, or whatever, and they want to hate on women's boxing. And I don't get that. Would you be there in 1910 hating on men's boxing and saying, oh, look at this bullshit. These aren't athletes. I'm going to go watch horse racing or some bullshit. No, you wouldn't do that. You would understand that it's a sport developing. And we have to be patient with that and understanding of it and supportive as a community to these fighters. Okay? They don't have the institutional support. So we have to support them in some sense. I'm not saying go and buy Shields pay-per-view. I think I did with a group. But digressing. I wouldn't have bought it on my own, to be quite honest. But how you can push it is you start talking. Start adding all these promoters, all these networks. Tell them to promote these fighters. Okay, public demand can help. It can absolutely change how corporations maneuver, especially in these minute fashions. And promoting women's boxing as well as men's boxing is a minute addition. It's not this earth-shattering paradigm shift for a network or promoter to do. You already fucking promote men's boxing. Just promote women's boxing. It's the same goddamn sport. Okay. At the same time, we really need to find some sort of organization, form an organization, whatever it may be, to get these sanctioning bodies to treat women equally. Because until women are treated equally as men when it comes to 3-minute rounds, 12-round title fights, it's always going to have that dynamic too. Who knows how many KOs late in fights Shields could have got because she has an additional 16 minutes of fucking action.
Yeah.
And almost additional 100% of fight time that women can receive. So we have to be pushing on that and focusing on that. Because, like Gary said, it's very much in its infancy. Shields is so much better than the field. You're going to have to nurture it. It's not going to develop on its own. Like, there are too many barriers for it to develop on its own. There are too many people that are controlling the industry that are saying, we don't want to promote this. We don't want to support it for it to develop on its own. We need to push those barriers down. That's just the reality. Anyways, Gary, any other thoughts on the Shields pay-per-view? I mean, how do you think it was? I mean, it was 10 rounds of pure dominance.
That's all. Yeah, I not only watched the Shields fight. I didn't buy it. I watched it the next day.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
It was all right.
It was all right. Shields is
Marlon Esparza looked good, and I always like Marlon Esparza. She looked really good. Who else looked interesting? There was a heavyweight women's fight that was intriguing. Danielle Perkins, she was really good, even though she was heavyweight, a little bit unorthodox. She had some talent. Like, she could move. Who else was really good? I'm trying to remember. It was a while ago now. I don't even know these fighters, so I apologize. But it was all right undercard for what it was. It was a regional card with a great main event that no one supported.
Did Esparza you said Esparza fought, right?
Yes.
She won?
Yes.
What weight? Do you remember what weight she fought at?
At bantamweight.
Bantamweight 118?
Yep. I'm not logged in right now, but yes, it's a bantamweight.
You know where she's from.
Shut up. I believe I heard this did 25,000 pay-per-view buys, right? Wasn't that the rumor going around?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it did half of what Crawford Postal did with the entire back end of HBO.
Yeah, right.
For an undisputed championship. Oh, man, I'm so sad. I feel bad, man. How does that happen? I think, honestly, I saw people kind of shitting on the pay-per-view number, but I thought that was a good number, to be quite honest. Speaking of it being Fight TV.
Yeah.
It's a Salida Promotions event. It's Clarissa Shields in her 11th fight against a good fighter, but a complete no-name, of course.
No-name fighter. A known fighter, yeah.
Drawing power, right? And she did half of what Terrence fucking Crawford did with the entire backing of top-ranked promotions and HBO. That's not bad. I'm actually kind of impressed with that number, I'll be honest. Maybe that's a hot take, I guess, because I saw a lot of people shitting on the number.
Because they don't know. They're just looking at the number and comparing it to a Canelo, or it's you got to put things in context. It's like she didn't have a push. Salida Promotions wasn't running ads. You weren't getting pop-ups all over your computer. You weren't getting banners on ESPN telling you to buy the fight, right? You got to put it in context. They didn't put the money into it that Fox puts into a pay-per-view. So you're not going to get the kind of return. Yeah,
absolutely. Dan Edwards in chat saying that, and Dan, let me know where Shield said this. What interview, what outlet was with. I'm curious if you remember. Dana White was going to promote Shield in 2020 apparently, but the pandemic threw a wrench in it, according to Shield. So that's why I'm very curious about where this interview was from, Dan. You know me, I think Dana White, in terms of promoting boxing, is complete horseshit, to be quite honest. But it would be better than Demetrius Salida. That's the reality. Just from a pure production size standpoint. The UFC is a multi-billion-dollar company. Salida Promotions, I mean, how much money are they making in?
It can't be a whole lot.
No, it can't be. Especially if it's purely boxing, right? Like I know for a fact, like a lot of small time promoters, like the boxing promotional company is basically just a way to launder drug money.
A pass through, yeah.
If we're being quite honest,
like Roy Jones Jr. Boxing, the guy that runs that with Roy, Keith Veltri, he owns a bunch of casinos. Like I don't like whether or not this turns a profit for him. I don't think it's
Frank
that big a concern.
Dude, Frank Warren doesn't turn a profit.
Those weren't his real returns. I mean, I'm sure that's what he handed in the government, but that was the most fugazi thing I've ever seen in my life. I was like, no, like,
dude, yeah,
this is not real. Like, this is not.
Yes, dude,
those books are cooked.
Right. You want to know, like, tinfoil hat moment here, okay? Queensberry Promotions is a money laundering scheme for the Kinhan cartel.
Maybe.
Boom. Come on. We all know what MTK is. Is Queensberry Promotions that far off? Come on, guys. You to bring up Savannah Marshall. We're gonna talk about Savannah Marshall later. We're talking about that when we get to the news because I feel like that's a little bit separate from what's really happening next for Shields. What is happening for Shields? The Savannah Marshall fight's not happening next or this year, so we can talk about that news and the interaction between Eddie Hearn and
it's also not competitive. That's what I'm saying. Like, I know Savannah Marshall beat Clarissa Shields when she was a teenager. I understand. Clarissa Shields beat her a bunch of times since. I don't know if y'all know that, right? Like, and Clarissa Shields it's not close. It's 190, but we'll get into that later. Clarissa Shields to start stopping people. Stop people.
IA in the chat saying, guys, feels like PBC is writing off 2021 till the pandemic is over. I don't know about that. I mean, they had like 4 pay-per-views in a row in the middle of the pandemic last year, I feel like. So I don't feel like they're writing off 2021. They didn't write off 2020, really.
They had pay-per-views, Tank Davis, like Santa
Cruz.
Charlos, yeah.
Obviously, Earl Spence.
Earl Spence, yeah.
I think it's 3 pay-per-views. But anyways, digressing. Yeah. And plus, like, we were getting most likely Jamel Charlo, Brian Castano this quarter, I'm guessing. Or this next quarter, I should say, since we're like on the bubble of the next quarter.
And Davis versus Barrios. Is that a pay-per-view?
No, that's not pay-per-view.
It's Tank Davis.
Yeah, but it's not Leo Santa Cruz.
So
that's the difference. I think you could have sold that, and they did like mid 100s, right? In terms of pay-per-views, like 125,000 pay-per-view buys
with Santa Cruz.
Yeah, what was it?
I thought it did over 200.
Did it do over 200?
I think so, yeah.
If it did over 200, like maybe they push it with... No, they shouldn't push it with Barrios. That doesn't make sense. Barrios is not B-side. He's not a good B-side. Leo was a great B-side for pay-per-view. Like, I know a lot of us hated that fight, but that made pay-per-view sense.
I didn't really even think... I know they put Davis Santa Cruz, but I didn't even really think Santa Cruz was the B-side as far as the draw goes, right? Like, Santa Cruz is a draw. He
is a draw. I don't know his numbers well enough to say that. I feel like he's had some duds over his career. While like Gervonta is clearly like an online media star, right? Like maybe it doesn't always translate to like Showtime numbers, but his presence online is valuable in of itself, right? Anyways,
250 it says.
Damn. Fuck.
Michael Calvin from the Athletic reported.
Yeah, I do that all the time too. By the way,
reported there were 250,000 pay-per-view buys from the event.
That's pretty fucking good. They might do it then. That's a good number because like you're looking at what it's still doing at least like what 180.
That's what I was thinking. 170, 180
with Barrios, and I mean Triple G would do that if he.
Ward and Kovalev did that. They paid both of those guys $1 billion for that fight. Oh my God. Gosh, they had to lose a lot of money on that.
The Rock Nation venture into boxing was just amazing. For it that like it only like happened like 2 or 3 years. Like it was a very quick foot in the water. Nope, fuck this. We're out.
They signed Hooker.
That's right, they did. And then he had that really controversial fight with Darlis Perez, right?
Darlis Perez.
I was good for that. He definitely lost that fight.
They gave it a draw, right? They didn't give him the win. I think they gave him a draw. I gotta look that up now.
I feel like they gave him the win, man.
That was the Rigo card, right? That was Ward, right? Because they were all Rock Nation guys. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a Rock Nation event, obviously, because it was Ward Kovalev. Dan Edwards saying Davis Cruz was promoted well too. Yes, it was promoted very well, and that helps, man. Like when you put money into the marketing, you get an ROI on that usually, especially if you have like natural stars with natural fan bases. It's very easy to pump some money into the marketing budget and get massive surplus value off of that. Like it's not that hard.
What was I going to look up?
Oh, I thought you already did the Davis Cruz.
Oh, all right. That's what I looked at then.
It's okay, Gary. It happens. What were we talking about? Are we still talking about the fights?
Oh, Hooker versus Perez. Was that a draw or did they give Hooker to the decision?
Oh yeah, look that up. Yes, look that up. I'm curious. I'm pretty sure he got the win. Anyways, digressing. Back to the Estrada Gonzalez card just to finish that up because we didn't finish that up. Hiroto Kawaguchi versus Azel.
It was a draw.
Vega. Oh, it was.
Somebody scored at 97-90. Who is? No way. Oh, wait, yeah. Adelaide Bird scored at 97-93 for Hooker.
Adelaide Bird, man. I love it.
Glenn Feldman had it a draw.
Oh, my God.
And then Robert Hoyle had it for 97-93 for Perez.
Anyways, definitely check out Kawaguchi, guys. I mean, his fight against Hiki Butler was definitely like a breakout performance, in my opinion. He definitely could be a guy that controls this division for a while at light flyweight. Austin Emma Williams on the card against Dennis Douglin with Mama's Boy, right? That's his nickname.
This is big. This is like
good fight. This is a really good fight.
Ambo is a tremendous athlete. He has great power. He has not been boxing that long. Right, like he only had a 3-year amateur career where his athleticism took him to high levels, right? And his athleticism and power has carried. Look at the level of competition he's fought. This is a massive step up. If he wins, I'm very impressed. He should win because Douglin is good, but he's not great. He's lost most of his big fights, although he arguably beat Anthony Durrell. Go try to find that fight online. It's been like scrubbed from the internet. You can't find it because that's how bad Durrell looked in that fight. I don't know who I think is going to win.
I'm picking Mama's Boy.
Are you? That's not unreal. I know everyone loves Emma Williams, and I love him too. I just don't. He hasn't done anything for anyone. Most of his fights, he blows the guy out in 2 rounds because he fights complete nobodies. Mm-hmm. This is like what Rob said. Is like I don't love this fight. Now, if he wins, that's good. I think that will propel him into fighting a top 15 guy in this next fight. But this is a big step up with like nothing to prepare him for it. I don't love this fight for him.
He's lucky that's only an 8-rounder.
Yeah, he is. He is.
Very lucky that's only an 8-rounder. If it was a 10-rounder, I think it would absolutely be Mama's Boy's fight, to be quite honest. I hope this fight goes rounds. Like, if Ammo gets him out of there early because of his athleticism, his knockout power, his just explosive nature, and, like, to be honest, like, Ammo does have good shot selection. Like, he does have good timing. He does have good accuracy with his shots. I do feel like his technique needs to be fine-tuned in a lot of ways. His game plan needs to be fine-tuned. And a guy like Dennis Douglin could easily outbox him for 8 rounds and win decision. Like, that's not the question. So I'm probably picking Mama's Boy. I'm thinking this does go rounds. I don't think Ammo can get him out of there early. And this is too soon. I do think, like, I'm all for, like, fighters taking these types of step-ups. But maybe in another fight or two, to be quite honest, for him. I think we're going to see kind of what happened to Anthony Sims Jr., who fought, what's his name? Why is the name escaping me? And he lost. And that was a step too high, or too soon, I should say. I think we're going to get sort of that situation here. Also, Raymond Ford on the card as well against Aaron Perez, 2 undefeated prospects. That should be an interesting fight. Otha Jones, is he off the card?
No, he's fighting my boy Jorge Castaneda. Unless that got scrapped, but he was fighting my guy who's going to beat him. He's fighting a kid from Laredo.
It's on ESPN schedule. It's not on Box Rec. I wonder if it got scrapped or something. Because, you know, in today's age, that can happen on Fight Week far more than nowadays. I'll have to look into that. Or maybe Gary can just quickly look up if Otha Jones got injured or something like that. Because he's not trying to have a Box Rec, and they have the rest of the card here. So, like, that's why I'm confused. But anyways, I'm very excited for that DAZN card, obviously, on Saturday, guys, in Dallas, Texas. Make sure you guys check into that one. Daniel Edwards saying, interesting. I'll take Williams off my bet slip. Thought it was easy money. What are the odds, Dan, on Emma Williams? Mama's boy. I'm very curious.
What kind of fight? Who's betting on Emma Williams versus? I mean, I guess
that might be like some sleeper like money you can find there, man. Like if Dennis Duggan's like plus like 4 something or higher,
that's a good bet.
That's a good bet, man. Or like if like you see if there's any sort of prop bet, which I doubt for this fight, but if there's a prop bet for like it going the distance, look into that too. That has to be plus money.
You're right. If it was a 10 round, Duggan would probably win all the late rounds. 8 rounds is a much better hand for Ammo because he can kind of front run, and like if he, Duggan will kind of run out of rounds, and like Ammo will carry. But still, 8 rounds, like you better get a knockdown or something in the first 4. You know what I'm saying? Because like after that, like does Duggan will just take over because he's a good boxer.
Absolutely. Let's talk about this upcoming weekend just to finish that up. Dave Benavidez versus Ronald Ellis, the other Ellis brother who is getting a step up before Rashidi Ellis. Goddamn poor Rashidi Ellis. I just want him to get a step up so bad, man. I was high on him years ago when he got that great knockout win, and he's just done nothing since then, or his promoter has done nothing since then. Really sad. Benavidez should beat Ronald Ellis. Ronald Ellis, while a decent fighter, is not of the quality of David Benavidez. And I'm hoping Benavidez can just sort of like get his career back on track in a sense, even though he really hasn't, in my opinion, like fall off the wagon or like where I should be worried about him or we should be worried about him. I think he just he shot himself in the foot a couple times. That hurt his momentum. Pick up a big win here. He's been calling out Jamal Charlo. I don't think that fight happens. To be quite honest, next. I just don't see why it would happen. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But if Benavidez can't get Caleb Plant, I could see, Benavidez versus Kyron Davies or Anthony Durrell again. Like I could see something like that as just a holdover fight until Caleb Plant is free, or Canelo is free after he beats Caleb Plant. Gary, any thoughts on Benavidez versus Ronald Ellis? Also, by the way, Jamonte Clark on the card against Terrell Gachet. That's an interesting fight. Also, Gachet with is he with what's his name? Why am I forgetting the trainer's name?
Who's Gachet?
Manny Robles. He's training with Manny Robles now.
That's an interesting match. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
It's either going to be really complimentary in terms of like that's a style that he's not naturally having. It might add to his game, or it's completely antithetical and doesn't help.
Maybe bare bones. If he's not any better, Goucher wouldn't be the most boring fighter in the world. That is maybe. Fujikilo
Abukadorov is also on the card against Javier Flores. Abukadorov has been like an IBF Mando for some time, I feel like. And that's about it for people that I know on this show.
That's a decent little card. I think Ronald Ellis is going to make the fight interesting. I think Ellis is really skilled. I don't think he's going to win, but I think he's going to win rounds, and I think he's going to push Benavidez. Like I think he's going to frustrate Benavidez, and Benavidez is going to have to go through the gears and adapt, and he's going to have to do more than you like. I don't think Ellis beat Korobov, and then he beat Emmanuel Elim. Mm-hmm. But the Korobov fight, Korobov's arm fell out or something, right? It was an injury.
Yeah, it was injury.
So like that doesn't really count. I think it was a pretty even fight through 3 rounds or something, and then Yep. And then he beat Emmanuel Elim before that. That's a good win, right? I think Ellis. I mean, he's not going to win the fight. Don't get me wrong. I'm not picking him to win, but I think this is a pretty competitive fight. At Benavidez wears him down and wins. Probably like 8-4 or 9-3. But I think Ellis has moments in this fight.
Yeah, I think he wins rounds. Like he's not a bad fighter, and Benavidez can definitely get outboxed. He's not like the perfect boxer. He definitely has a tendency to chase his opponent instead of cutting off the ring. And if you're able to have some decent lateral movement, you can definitely keep him chasing you and maybe win rounds off just counterboxing. But yeah, it's a decent little Showtime card. Obviously the card of the weekend is the DAZN card, but it's a good little Showtime card. And plus, I've always liked watching Dave Benavidez fight. I've been high on him for some time. I think he's probably the guy to give Canelo his toughest fight in some time. So that's sort of my take on it. Rewinding a little bit to yesterday, just so we can finish off like fights and talking about fights. Brandon Lee picked up a big knockout win in terms of just, I think Gary, you said it was knockout of the year, right? I think you said that on Twitter. I'm not gonna go that far yet.
I mean, it's that knockout.
It was just such a weird knockout in a way, right? Because like the punch didn't seem like it was that punch, but it just connected. And Samuel Taylor, he just like timber, man, like he was out instantly when it connected on that chin. And when he went down, that was aesthetically pleasing. It just was the punch was weird. Like it looked almost half-assed in a way. Like it didn't look like that type of knockout blow, and it was. I mean, shout out to Brandon Lee. Good prospect.
He's heavy-handed.
Yeah. Clearly.
He throws his combinations well, right? And Steve Kim was all about him after the fight, right? I get it. He's going to be a top 10 to 15 guy for sure. His skills are there. Is he a world champion? First of all, we have no idea if there's dog in him or not, right? Like when I asked Keith Thurman about Omar Ward, he's like, he's got skills, but I can't say that he's a world champion until we see him tested. Like I have no idea if there's any dog in him. You know, so we have no idea if Brandon Lee's got that kind of makeup. We don't know what his chin is like. We also don't know, can he fight going backwards? Can he fight not coming forward? Right? Can he fight a slickster? Can he fight someone who can stand in with him? Like we haven't seen any. I think Lee is good. And we're going to see Brandon Lee as a top 10 to 15 guy. But once he's in that top 10 to 15, can he keep winning? Offensively, he's good, right? If he stays composed and he can deliver shots, maybe he can. But like I haven't seen like him do enough things to tell me that, oh yeah, that's the guy. Brandon Lee's the guy. Although I think he's good. You know, he's a top 10 to 15 guy. I'm just not ready to say like Steve Kim was this is the future of the 140-pound division.
Oh, definitely not. Especially since I don't think he's going to stay at 140 pounds for that long anyways. He's a big guy. He's like 5'10". Like he's not a small guy for the division. And 147 is clearly the better division. Why do this? Like why stay with this lower
Because like when you go up to 147, right? Like it's a common division. You're facing all of these premier athletes. Like isn't he better suited as being if he can't make the weight, he can't make the weight. But the kind of power that he carries, isn't he better suited to fight at 140? In the intermediate division? Because like, if he goes up to 147, Boots Enos is going to tool all over him.
He's not ready for that type of fight yet, though.
But that's what they're talking about. I'm like, he's like some... And I get it. His power is good. He's heavy-handed. His shot selection's really good. So far, he stayed patient and composed, and he picks his shots. But they're talking about him like he's there. Like he's arrived. Like he's the prospect. And it's like, I'm not ready to say any of that yet.
I mean, he was last year fighting in 6-rounders, so like
that's what I'm like. Let's all tap the brakes on him a little bit.
He hasn't fought anyone in the top 30, 40, 50. Like he hasn't fought anyone that's a name.
I mean, this is the best guy he's fought. A showbox bet who loses all. I mean, look, Rob asked me, was this guy supposed to test him? I said, the guy's supposed to give him rounds. Samuel T doesn't beat people, right? So I don't think they were expecting him to really, really push and make Lee really dig deep. Like Ammo Williams is going to have to, right? Like this is a guy like he should go rounds, and he didn't. And look, kudos to Brandon Lee, got him out in 3 rounds and looked spectacular. But like, let's keep in perspective, he didn't fight a really good opponent. He fought Samuel T, who Showbox uses to lose. Samuel T, all due respect, is a jobber, like in professional wrestling. You know what I'm saying? Like he should go and last and do okay, but he's there to lose.
Who do you want him to face next? And the problem is like he's a Cameron Duncan fighter, I believe, right? So like he doesn't have like he doesn't have pathways to these big fights that are meaningful. So like,
Cletus Selden.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Why not? I wouldn't be opposed.
I was going to say Lewis Richard, but now Lewis Richard is in this tournament to be the Mando for one of the sanctioning bodies. It's like, all right, don't stick him with Brandon Lee. Cletus Selden. Cletus Selden's going to make him work, right? Cletus Selden's going to get his grill, and how does he respond to a power punch who's up on him? I think Brandon Lee should pass that test, but Cletus Selden is going to make you work.
Yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to that. A couple other names I wouldn't mind. Lewis Ritson. Why not?
but he's got the tournament lined up. He's gonna get destroyed. But
Eves Ulysses Jr. I wouldn't be opposed to that fight.
Kendo Castaneda.
Yeah, Kendo would be intriguing. Might be a little bit too high right now. I'm looking a little bit below that level, I want to say. Antonio Moran, I mean, got another guy that's lost to a bunch of people, but at least we've seen him fight better opponents than Samuel T has fought. Like Samuel T lost like Montana Love. Like that's the level of opponent that he loses to on Showtime, right?
On Showbox. I mean, we've seen this guy fight on Showbox 10 times, right? Samuel T, he doesn't win, right? Like, okay.
Clay Seldon's probably a decent name. I probably would go with that because it's one that should give him some push, right? Should fight him and test his chin to some degree.
Eves Ulysses is another one, right? Because Eves Ulysses is going to move, right? How's he going to deal with a guy that doesn't stand in front of him when he can't just walk in the front door? Because Eves Ulysses is going to keep moving and circling. How does he respond to that? Because we haven't seen Brandon Lee respond to any of that. He fights guys. I'm not trying to say that he's been as matched as easily as Berlanga, but they put him in with guys who he should destroy. You know what I'm saying?
I think Berlanga is probably an apt comparison. Is that Brandon Lee is not like cocky like Berlanga. Like Berlanga is not there saying like I can beat Triple G right now. Like, no, you can't. That's not what you were able to do right now, Berlanga. I apologize. Brandon Lee's a nice guy, so it's hard to hate on him, right? Like he seems like a nice guy. And honestly, like Steve Kim is talking shit. Like, fuck Steve Kim. Like, he blocked me. Like, I don't see his bullshit. So I don't care about Steve Kim and his bullshit opinions. I think anyone in their right mind realizes this guy has not fought anyone of note. There's levels to this game. You put him up there against Prograis right now, or Josh Taylor, or Jose Ramirez. It's not going to be pretty. Like, he's not there yet for obvious reasons, let alone like Baranchiks, right? Or the Cepedas of the world, right? Like, there's no way he's ready for that level right now. And that's fine. How old is Brandon Lee, too? Like
21 or 22.
Oh, man, he has fucking time. Yeah, he's good. Like, give him another 2 or 3 years working his way up to the top 10. That's all you need. But, I mean, if you're going to have him fight this often, can you at least please, fight someone of note? That'd be nice.
What about like O'Hara Davies?
Ooh, I would like that. Maybe a little bit too high of a step up, but again, I would be okay with it. Jay in the chat saying, "Is your heartbreak recovered yet from the Burchelt fight yet, Matt?" First off, fuck you, Jay. Secondly, I don't know what happened with Valdez. And clearly, the dude took the clenbuterol meat. We all know it. Took the beef.
Reynoso said it was the best coaching job he's ever done. I said, yeah, it was.
No one thought your guy was going to win this one, man. And plus, like, we're being quite honest here. The improvements that Valdez showed against Burchelt really were not shown in his previous fights with Reddy Reynoso. Like, it was a perhaps once-in-a-lifetime performance by Oscar Valdez. But Jesus fucking Christ, I can't believe I talked that much shit about him for him to win. This is what I get. Karma, Gary. The universe laughing at me. Digressing. What we're talking about, fights, right? Brandon Lee. Oh, anyways, moving away from him and fights overall, let's get to news out there in the boxing world, Gary. Actually, let's briefly talk about fights for a second. Connected to fights. Claressa Shields obviously fought Saturday. Eddie Hearns out there. They're talking on social media. He wants to do a 2-fight deal with Savannah Marshall. Gary, I really need to explain to our listeners and viewers like why this is just kind of like bullshit and not real. Like, do I really need to explain this? I guess I do. One, Claressa Shields is fighting in 2 divisions apart from Savannah Marshall at this time. 2 divisions. She's fighting at 154. Last time I checked, Savannah Marshall is still fighting at 168. Okay. They're not even remotely close to each other in terms of size at this point in time. They're not in each other's spheres of relevancy. That's just the reality. 2, Eddie Hearn himself, in his talks with Claressa Shields on social media, said, hey, come to Texas this weekend. We can set up you versus the winner of McCaskill versus Brackus. So even Eddie Hearn isn't really serious about making the Shields-Savannah Marshall fight. It's clearly a promoting tool to promote your fighter with a star because your fighter's not a star. Get your fighter in the headlines with somebody that is a draw. You build up their profile. It's like promoting 101. And for some reason, like, we have people out there saying, like, oh man, Shields is ducking Savannah Marshall, blah blah blah. Marshall's the greatest. And it's like, you stupid people. Okay. Savannah Marshall's own promoter isn't genuinely honest about making this fight. Like, stop. And plus, Shields kicks her ass in the pros. Like, it's not even close. But digressing, Gary, thoughts on this?
No, I agree. My thought was a 2-fight deal was Rackus or McCaskill, and then, but that wouldn't make any sense because one fight would be at 147, and then you jump 21 pounds, so you go fight at 168. So, Eddie wants to promote her, and I think if Eddie wants, he's got to be able to buy her out of that whatever she's got with Salita, right? I mean, like, if he really wants to promote her that bad, it can't be. Money's not going to stop him because he can.
And it's Matchroom. They're flooded with cash.
That's what I'm saying.
From just being overall a very successful promotional company over the last 10 to 15, 20 years, and having massive cash influx investments from DAZN, from Sky. That helps. So, come on.
Who cares what Eddie Hearns says? It's garbage.
Yeah, but come on. You have people out there like repeating it like it's the Bible. Like it's like the holy scripture from God, the Father, Son, and Holy Trinity. Like it's man. Eddie Hearn is the fucking gospel of boxing, man. And it's like he's a promoter and he's a very he's a savvy promoter because he knows he can go and do this shit at the same time tweet at Shields trying to set up a completely different fight, and his fans are out there saying that Shields is ducking everyone, even though she's clearly not. She's been undisputed champion in multiple divisions now. She's fighting in 2 sports now. And
it's hard to say when you're undisputed in multiple divisions that you're ducking people. It's just a hard argument to make. That's all.
Anyways, like have Savannah Marshall like go do something. Like honestly, like have her go like win a significant fight that people care about. That hasn't happened yet. People only care about Savannah Marshall in connection to Claressa Shields. Like think about no one out there that is a Savannah Marshall fan brings up any other matchup for Savannah Marshall. None. Not a single name. They don't mention any other champion, any other person, nothing. It is only Claressa Shields. Meanwhile, Claressa Shields is talking about a whole bunch of other people that are far more relevant, important, and meaningful for her career. Sorry. Have your fighter go do something. Not that hard. And honestly, just do what Shields did. Just become undisputed champion. Like, it's not that hard. Go do it. If you're that great, Savannah Marshall, go do it. If you're better than Shields, go do it. Right?
Yeah.
Go beat Christina Hammer. Go do all these things that Shields already did that people were hyped on. Not hard.
We need to make Claressa Shields a star, though. I forget, it was like, when did she fight on the DAZN card? What? She fought on the DAZN card once, and they showed the press conference. She saw it talking. They asked her, she's the greatest women boxer of all time. And she said, I don't have to say it. My resume speaks for itself. Like, I don't have to say that. You already know it. And my wife was watching it with me. I was like, I like her. Right? Like, I think there's something likable about her, but you got to get her in front of people.
I believe it was the Hannah Rankin fight.
Was it the Hannah Rankin? Okay, maybe.
Oh.
And it was that. And my wife's like, she watched her talk for like 5 minutes. My wife's like, I like her. Like, she could be a star, but you gotta put her in front of people. Like, you can't make her a star if you don't, like the Williams sisters, right? Like, they're likable. They're obviously great at what they're doing, but they're likable. But you got to put them in front. You got to let them be seen.
Like, think about this. Claressa Shields has a Hollywood production movie about her life coming out with Ice Cube in it. How is she not on like Jimmy Fallon and like Good Morning America?
Yeah.
Like, how is she not on that sort of circuit? She should be. Like, if you're not doing that, you're doing a massive disservice to a potential transcendental talent. Like, that's the reality. Like, you're diminishing not only what she can do, but what she can do for the sport when you don't push her in these ways that are, again, pretty common sense. Like, any big-time fighter has gone through those media circuits. Any of them. From Ali back in the day to fighters now like McGregor, Mayweather, Pacquiao, whoever. They all go through these media circuits. They all do it. Claressa Shields is the one that clearly has the talent, the natural charisma that people will be a fan of her. And Jay, it's not that she can't finish fights, that she's not a star. Floyd Mayweather was doing decisions forever, man. Like, there's a long time, and I'll be honest, Jay, like, people might bring up, oh no, but there's Pretty Boy Floyd, he was knocking out people. Yeah, but a lot of mainstream casual fans never saw that Floyd Mayweather.
Right.
No one saw Floyd Mayweather, except for boxing fans, fight Genaro Hernandez. Like, I'm sorry, like, walk down the street, walk to your buddy's house, whatever, call him up, it's COVID, right? Say, hey, who has Mayweather fought? I guarantee you, they were mentioned names he won decisions against, except for maybe like Victor Ortiz, because that's a pretty memorable fight for and of itself. Or they're going to name all names from the Money Mayweather era.
Joe, Virgil Ortiz. Victor Ortiz was the Money Mayweather era, right? The Money Mayweather era started after that comeback. So everything after Hatton, right? De La Hoya, Hatton, which is the other knockout that he scored. After that, it was all decisions. And all of his biggest pay-per-view fights, besides the De La Hoya fight, which was a boring fight that went 12 rounds. I don't want it, but to the casual fan, it's boring.
It was boring. It was boring for the casual fans. It was.
After that, all of his fights, Pacquiao, Cotto. Cotto was a fun fight, but it went 12. He didn't knock anybody out.
Robert Guerrero,
Canelo, right? Like, those are all 12-round fights.
And no one went in thinking that Mayweather was going to knock out these people.
He couldn't even stop Berto. Now, he won every round, right? But, like, he couldn't stop Berto. What he does to Berto was what Claressa Shields does to everyone. It's not even close.
And now, I'm not saying Claressa Shields can do exactly what Mayweather did, because Mayweather was obviously a point in time and sort of context that was very unique in terms of star power and just the end of the Tyson era. People wanted something else. Mayweather fit that slot, fit that drawing sort of gap left in the sport. Shields, though, if she's pushed, she can be a star. She's not pushed, man. Like, Jay, like, let's be honest here. Like, what has Salida Promotions done for Claressa Shields?
Let her fight it in his own card once.
I mean, if it was with anyone else that was a major conglomerate, it would be 100% different. Hollywood is already making movies about her, man, with Ice Cube in them, for fuck's sake. Clearly, there is some outward attention on her, and they want to make her a star, but the people within her sport are holding her back. Like, think about that. When has that ever happened? Where somebody within our sport is getting a major Hollywood motion picture production with someone to the level of stardom and superpower of Ice Cube being in as her fucking trainer, right? And her own sport, like, hates her and, like, doesn't want to support her and doesn't care about her. Like, think about how, like, backwards that is. Like, I don't get it. It has nothing to do with finishes. It has nothing to do. Could that have expedited the process? Absolutely. But that's not a barrier to stardom. It's not. It's been proven that going to the decision all the time is not a barrier to draw power.
Even Pacquiao, after the Cotto knockout, he went to decision with everybody. Went to decision with Marquez. He went besides when getting knocked out by Marquez. He went to decision with Margarito. He went decision. Brandon Rios. He went to decision with all those guys. You know what I'm saying? He went decision with Mayweather, right? Besides getting knocked unconscious by Marquez in the fourth fight, he went decision in all those fights too. And he was the knockout artist. He was the knockout guy, right? But he went decision with Chris Algieri. He didn't knock out any of those guys. Who the hell did he knock out after Cotto? Nobody, right? After Cotto, right? Because he had to knock out Hatton, Pacquiao, Cotto. And then after Cotto, he didn't really knock anybody out. He didn't knock Mosley out. He didn't knock Margarito out. He didn't knock Marquez out in the third fight. Who did he knock out? He didn't knock Clottey out.
Or Broner, right?
Or Broner.
Definitely Broner.
Or Thurman. I can say he really hasn't knocked anybody out since he became a star.
No, I mean, you had to bring up the fact that she doesn't get the support, institutional support because she's black. I mean, I think that's a possible factor, of course, if not most likely a huge contributing factor. Bob Arum, I think, has historically and explicitly been proven to fail at promoting black fighters, and that's why he is promoting Michaela Mayer to the degree he is, and not anyone else, right, in women's boxing. But like I said, I don't know if you're around, Jay, in the chat, but I said early in the show, like, I've heard whispers that, like, Al Heyman doesn't want to promote women's boxing. Like, it's a industry-wide issue, unfortunately, that seems to be predicated on sex more than race when it comes to women's boxing. Not that they aren't a connection point between the two, not that they don't conflate, or not that there's not a Venn diagram, so to speak, of these two things coming into contact with each other as why women's boxing and people like Claressa Shields don't get the support they do. But it seems to be an industry-wide issue, especially in the U.S., for not supporting women's boxing. Because even, like, let's be honest, like, even like Top Rank does a shit job with Michaela Mayer. Like, they do a better job, obviously, than Demetrius Salita and Claressa Shields do because of the conglomerate that they're attached to. They're attached to fucking ESPN. They should do better at promoting Michaela Mayer than Demetrius Salita does with Claressa Shields. But even they suck at it.
We got to remember, ESPN is terrible at everything they do.
They really are, man.
The only good thing they have is their basketball crew at Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. That's it. That's the entire thing. Oh, and the Saturday morning football show, the college game day is fun.
Mark Jackson, really?
You don't like Jackson and Van Gundy?
I like Van Gundy. I'm not a big fan of Mark Jackson.
All right.
Put this way. Maybe it's because I'm tainted here. Okay? Because I went to college in Oregon, right? Which basically means I went to college in San Francisco. Because everyone in the Bay Area goes to college in Oregon, apparently. This is something I did not know until I went to Oregon for college. So this was...
like Gary Payton.
I graduated in 2014, right, from high school. So I went to college in 2014, and then 15 and 16, right? That was the mania of the Warriors.
You're right.
That was like the mania. Okay. And I am living with people from the Bay Area that are massive Warriors fans. Literally, like my house that I lived in, my apartment house, whatever, was all people from the Bay Area that love the Warriors, right? And they love the A's. By the way, they hated the Giants. They love the A's and the Warriors. And they, I mean, ruthlessly tore apart Mark Jackson.
He did not do a good job.
I mean,
the game passed Mark by, right? Like Mark Jackson, I loved Mark Jackson. He was so unathletic and so slow, but when he was kind of big and short, he had like these weird, like kind of playground moves, and he would like back you down from half court, like he would start backing you down from half court. Like the game, that's not the way the game is played anymore. And he had Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. You know, like the game had just passed him by, I guess, like from a coaching standpoint.
Yeah.
I love Mark Jackson to the helicopter. Mark Jackson is one of my favorite players to watch because he had no athleticism at all. And despite that, he had a pretty good career. He has more assists than Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson. And he really didn't have any.
As one of those people that's like not really a natural athlete, I do love like those people that are clearly not natural athletes that are somehow like world level like sports athletes. And it's like, how did you get here? Like, what was it? Like, clearly, like when you were 8, you probably weren't good at this. Why did you keep doing it? What clicked? You know. Anyways, so good. But Jay, if you want to hear any more of our opinions about Claressa Shields, we talked a lot about that early in the show. I know you joined in late. We talked about a lot of that early in the show. I recommend checking it out. moving on from that, Gary, I mean, last time we checked, right, from Bob Arum, Mr. Honesty himself, right? Dude, he said, Fury Joshua, dude, there's no more issues. The deal's close. It's pretty much done. So why are we hearing it today that Fury is saying, man, fight's still not happening. Wilder might be next. Who knows?
I think he's trolling. I think he's bored. It's been a while since he's been in the ring, right? Like, it's been a minute.
Yeah.
I think he's just bored. Like, I think
been over a year.
Yeah, I think he's bored. Like, you know.
You're okay there, Gary? Did you mess up your cord?
Something got unplugged here.
Oh, the Ethernet cord?
No, not the Ethernet. My charger. Oh, there it is. There it is.
Gary had to get up. Act out.
I don't like getting up.
Yeah, getting up is. Oh, you muted yourself, Gary. What happened?
My battery was like it was in the red. Like, why would my computer's plugged in, but plugged into the wall, and that came out, which is.
Gary, come on, man. Come on. Got too hyped there.
Yeah.
Mark
Jackson, how he used to back people down from half court, which you can't even do in today's game anymore, right? The hand check rule too. Like,
back to Fury Joshua. I'll be honest, I don't know what to think about it. Like, we do know that the fight has been sort of circular in nature in terms of negotiations for some time. We've been hearing reports that, like, even like whose name is first has been an issue in negotiations. Is this just trolling? Like, is this fight really going to happen in June or when they're talking about it? Or is it going to get pushed back again? Or are they going to fight someone else in the meantime now? Like, what's going to happen here, Gary? Is it just trolling? I know it's Tyson Fury, and he is someone that trolls the media often, and that's kind of what I want to hope. But who knows? It does feel like there's been a lot of smoke to this potential fire of this fight kind of falling apart.
Again, I don't know how close they are, but him saying that the fight with Wilder is imminent. He said a couple of months ago he's not fighting Wilder again. Maybe a month ago he said, I'm not fighting Wilder again. Now it's imminent. Like, no, this is he's having fun with people.
So you think the fight's happening in June?
I think that's what they're working on. I think we're closing in on that. Yeah. I'm not ready to say that fight's going to happen on a specific date or time, but I think we're trending in that direction. I think we're getting closer. And Wilder's having fun.
Excuse me. Speaking of like this fight in a sense, Usyk, who obviously Gary is a massive stan of, and a mandatory to Anthony Joshua, he's getting a little bit frustrated with this process as well as me. And he wants either the Joyce deal done or Joshua fight ordered. I'm assuming that the only reason the formers hold up is because of the latter, right? Yeah. The only reason we're not getting the Joyce fight done is because we don't know if the Joshua fight is done yet. And clearly Usyk is like the odd man out and just waiting in limbo. Gary, thoughts on your man?
So it's inevitable, right? Like, Usyk's going to be the heavyweight champion of the world. So Eddie Hearn wants like AJ to be undisputed heavyweight champ, right? That's obviously his goal. And then once he does that, he can just vacate the WBO so that AJ doesn't have to lose to Usyk. If Fury wins, then I can throw Usyk in right away and have Usyk get all the belts back on my side. That's where we are, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, Eddie Hearn wins either way. If AJ wins, he has all the belts and he can just vacate WBO, right? Or if he loses, then he really wins because then Usyk can go beat Tyson Fury.
I gotta ask, Gary, like what has happened for you to think that AJ is? I'm gonna use the word scared. I feel like that's the framing you use, even though that's not the word you use, but that's kind of like the implication. Like, why do you think AJ is like scared of this fight with Usyk? And
I don't think AJ is scared of the fight. I think AJ is a fighting champion. I think Eddie Hearn's scared of the fight for AJ. Okay,
why do you think Eddie Hearn is scared of this fight?
Because he's seen Usyk fight.
Exactly. Why would he think he's scared?
Because
we've all seen Usyk fight a heavyweight now a couple times. None of us are scared of AJ fighting him, except for you
and Eddie Hearn.
No, we don't know that. We know you are, but I don't think anyone's really scared of that anymore. To be quite honest, if they even were. I mean, 6'6", 6'2" heavyweight, 220. Doesn't pack a lot of power in this division.
Yeah, and I said he has to start to learn how to finish people, or he's going to get stopped at some point because there's too many big hitters in this division to go 12 rounds with everyone.
Jay in the chat saying, forgot Usyk was even around.
Imagine having a generational talent. That's a bad job, Eddie Hearn. Bad job, Eddie Hearn.
Hold on. Do you know what Usyk is? That won't stop texting. Oh, so good. Look, I love Usyk, man, but the guy had a bunch of injuries coming out of the Tony Bellew fight. That stopped his momentum in massive ways, and even he himself knew that he was going to take some tune-up fight, so to speak, after the injuries and to acclimate to the weight class. So I feel like in some fashion, it's been a concerted effort in in a positive way, in a sense, right? It's not like it was done forcefully on Usyk's career. I think Usyk was quite aware of his momentum being slowed down on purpose for a variety of reasons. And now they're trying to restart it. But the reality is that he is the odd man out. You're not Tyson Fury. And until that fight either materializes or doesn't materialize, you're still going to be the odd man out. And that can only change by you winning one of these fights against the top three.
Right.
But in regards to, post Fury Joshua, let's say the fight materializes, it happens. I don't see any reason why they would purposely vacate the WBO belt just to get away from Usyk. That makes no sense to me. One, it's going to be called at that point, and you just went this whole sort of route to become undisputed. To give it up instantly seems ridiculous in some fashion. Also, it's an in-house fight. It's a massive pay-per-view fight in the UK market. So it's a money fight. It's not like it's not a money fight. It's not like it's a tough fight that doesn't bring money to the table. Usyk probably brings a lot more money to the table than 99% of the heavyweights. The only other people that bring more money to the table than Usyk is Tyson Fury and Deontay Wilder. You can argue that Usyk brings more money to the table than Andy Ruiz. You can argue that.
Does he bring more money to the table than Chisora? Does he bring more money to the table than Dillian White?
Chisora and Dillian White, absolutely.
Oh, then the fight will get made. If that's true, I didn't think that it was. Maybe it's true. If that's true, then that fight will get made. If Dillian White's a bigger draw, he'll fight Dillian White because it's an easier fight, and it's a bigger money fight. But if you're saying Usyk is a bigger money fight than Dillian White, I'm assuming Dillian White beats Povetkin. Right, let's assume that.
Can we assume that?
I'm basing this conversation on that.
But I will say, though, that fight is close. And I'm not going to say that White's going to win that fight. Povetkin landed that knockout blow. He can land it again.
Yeah.
You would have seen that Usyk is not promoted by Eddie. Chisora was the last fight on his matchroom contract. It's a fight-by-fight basis, I believe. It's been that way for some time, actually. Right? Hasn't their relationship been a fight-by-fight basis for some time? Similar to Dylan White's relationship with Matchroom?
I don't know because he's still the co-promotion with the other promoter. I don't exactly know.
That was the original deal, right? But then they went to a fight-by-fight basis.
Fight basis, maybe. You could be right.
I believe so, and I think it's been that way for at least since the Chisora fight, if not the Jazz Witherspoon fight as well. I think he only had a 2-fight deal with Matchroom. It wasn't this long deal. It wasn't like he got a Triple G co-promoted deal and his own, golden parachute. That didn't happen for Usyk. And for obvious reasons. Usyk wasn't the star that Triple G was. Digressing though. I think we get Joshua Fury, hopefully. I'm going to cross my fingers on that because that's a mega fight for the sport. And Usyk Joyce would be a fantastic rematch. I'm actually really intrigued by that rematch, especially since Joyce looked so good against Dan Dubois and Usyk has looked so poor at heavyweight. Moving on from that, Eddie Hearn, who I think is sort of jumping the gun here in some fashion, is talking to Louis DeCubas, who is the manager of Caleb Plant, for a fight between him, obviously Caleb Plant and Canelo after Billy Joe Saunders. But obviously speaking, after this Billy Joe Saunders fight, Canelo's a free agent again. So I'm a little bit confused as to how this negotiation can even happen in some fashion. And also, I mean, great promoting for your next fight, Eddie, for Billy Joe Saunders. Great promoting already. Planning Canelo's next fight against somebody else that's not in your promotional stable. Fantastic work there, Eddie. Not Dimitri Andrade, Triple G. No. Someone else with PBC. I love it, Eddie. Even though I love the fight, obviously, I just think that this is like the worst promoting I've seen in some time from a guy that I just said is a savvy promoter. It makes me wonder what he is thinking here. Gary, are you as perplexed by this as I am? Even though we like the matchup?
It's weird, but like my thinking is that like when Eddie Hearns signed Danny Jacobs.
Quickly, Jay is asking what's the background sound. I believe that's Gary's like computer dying.
Can y'all hear that again?
Yeah.
All right, hang on.
I believe it's like his computer dying slowly. It's something, right? There's some sort of like technological thing that I think is slowly dying in Gary's office that's making that sound. Yeah, it's not the greatest. I tuned it out. I apologize. Because last show it was bad. But it's all right. It's the best I can do. Dan in the chat saying he's looking for Plant to fight Billy Joe if he beats. Dude, Dan, why you do this, man? Why you do this? So good. Can you imagine? Dude, there's no way in hell Billy Joe Saunders beats Canelo and then beats Caleb Plant. If he does that, he's a Hall of Fame fighter. I'll say that right now. Right? Like if Billy Joe Saunders beats Canelo and somehow miraculously doesn't have a rematch after that and fights Caleb Plant, Hall of Famer.
It should stop soon. So what it is it's the air conditioner going on. My son can reach the thermostat now, and he set it so it goes off at the same time every day, and he set it on like 50 degrees. So he just like it's a video game, like, oh, it lights up, and he keeps hitting the buttons. And he said it. I don't know how to take it off. So like it goes. And then I just set it at 50. So it's like all in the house is just freezing. And it happens every day. And I don't know how to fix it. Like, do I want to call an HVAC guy and pay him $300 to fix this stupid thing? Like, I don't really want to do that either. So it's like, I don't.
And do like AC units are like so hard to program. Like it's like a different language to program AC units.
Yeah,
I don't know how you do it. I've never figured it out.
It should stop though. I turned everything off.
It's so good. Love it, Gary. Anyways, back to Canelo Caleb Plant. What do you think here? Do you think this fight's happening? Do you think Eddie Hearns talking out of his ass here because he doesn't have the promotional rights and to negotiate for Canelo after Billy Joe Saunders? Like, what do you make of this story?
I think he's assuming the sale. I think why wouldn't Canelo keep fighting with me? You know what I'm saying? I think he was fixated on beating Canelo, and that's why he signed Danny Jacobs. When he signed Danny Jacobs, I think he thought he had the guy that could beat Canelo, ipso facto, the next biggest star in boxing. He's got a great story. He's from the largest market, and he just beat Canelo. When that didn't happen, when Canelo beat Jacobs, he's like, all right, if you can't beat him, join him. I'm just going to promote Canelo. Like, I'm in on Canelo. I can't beat him. Andre's not going to beat him. Billy Joe's not going to beat him. I want to promote Canelo. And he's assuming, his assumption is that he is Canelo's co-promoter moving forward. You know, like Mayweather was Mayweather Promotions, but he was basically a Golden Boy fighter, right? Like he fought all Golden Boy guys. I think that's the way Eddie Hearns is looking at Canelo. He's my guy.
It'd be interesting. Because obviously Canelo Promotions is now a thing.
Right.
Yeah, I think we kind of didn't really talk about that much, but Canelo Promotions is a thing now. I forget what. I think it was obviously the last fight he had with Yurdam that it was a co-promoted Canelo Promotions and match from event. I mean, if you do by a fight-by-fight basis, I guess, but I've always stated that you're giving someone else access to the cookie jar that you don't need him. Like Canelo can promote his fights without Eddie Hearn, in my opinion. Especially a Caleb Plant fight. Like you're adding now 3 hands in the jar, they're all getting their share. Instead of it could just be 2 hands. PBC and Canelo Promotions. You don't need Eddie Hearn. Plus, it's a U.S. fight It's not like Matchroom US is going to help you promote the event in Texas or some shit or Nashville or wherever. So like it just doesn't make sense to me. When you come back around to Triple G or Andrade, yeah, maybe do a co-promoted event with Eddie Hearn, but for Caleb Plant, that specific fight, I don't get the reasoning.
It's like when you score a girl way over your head, and then you're at the dance, and every guy's hitting her. She's with me. He's with me. She's with me. Right? That's kind of what Eddie Hearn is doing.
I totally get why Eddie Hearn's doing. I'm saying from Canelo's perspective.
I don't know that Canelo is as interested in Eddie Hearn promoting this fight as Eddie Hearn is from. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what Eddie Hearn said.
Yeah.
Who cares what Eddie Hearn says? It's garbage.
Do you think this is just like promoter talk and like Canelo's out there going like, Eddie, what are you doing?
I think the fight is going to happen after the Billy Joe fight. I've said that for a while. I don't know that Eddie Hearn's going to have a dog in this fight. I'm sure he wants to, right?
It just seems like you're making it more complicated.
Why is your hand in the cookie jar here? Like you have no business here.
And plus, you're just adding more egos into a negotiation room.
Yeah,
probably doesn't need to be there. Like, imagine, like hypothetically, guys and ladies, let's imagine like a boardroom meeting to negotiate the Canelo Plant fight. You got Canelo there, you got his lawyers there, you got Eddie Reneso there, you got the Fox execs, or Showtime execs, depending if they're doing a Showtime pay-per-view or Fox pay-per-view. You have Al Heyman, you have Caleb Plant, Louis DeCubas. All of a sudden, Eddie fucking Hearn's there, and he's I don't know, interjecting and trying to make a fight, even though he has his own network affiliations, his own liquor affiliations and advertiser affiliations. It doesn't make any sense. Like, I know for a fact when we had Canelo Triple G, the liquor sponsorship was a big fiasco in of itself. Whose liquor brand, whether it's Canelo or Triple G's, could be on the mat? Whose could be on the poster? Can they both be on the poster? That was a massive issue. I know that because I was working with Chivas Regal at the time, and they were the liquor sponsor for Triple G. Massive issue just for that. Now you're going to add in Eddie Hearn with his own deals, his own branding. It just makes no sense to me. Let alone the fact that you're adding someone else that's taking a cut from the overall pot, right? That in of itself is an issue. But there's other sort of intangibles that are there by adding a completely different corporation and entity, conglomerate in a sense, to this negotiation when he doesn't belong here, has no horse in this race. It just doesn't make sense. But I am obviously like you, Gary. I 100% think Canelo Caleb Plant happens after Billy Joe Saunders. It's just not going to involve Eddie
Hearn.
or DAZN most likely. Like, I don't see why you would need to have DAZN unless, because in a sense, if you include DAZN, you're adding another hand in the jar, taking money from the pay-per-view profit, right? Mm-hmm. Even though in a sense you might sell more pay-per-views because you're adding another distribution platform, right? So you might add more sales, but it's marginal.
Not in the U.S. Like, who's going to buy it on DAZN who doesn't have Fox? You know what I'm saying? Like, everyone. I guess it would add more. I think the amount that it would add more, you can count on one hand.
Jay saying, I think this is him saying that this is reasons. Hold on, let me start at the top here. Jay saying maybe Canelo just doesn't want a hassle of having to promote his own fights at a grand scale when he's still fighting and can't delegate his time to promoting himself. Let someone else who's already established and they already trust deal with it. But the problem is that Eddie Hearn's not established in the U.S. market, I would argue. He's very much a small-time promoter in the U.S. market. Like, his big fights are Estrada and Gonzalez 2, which is a great fight. But that's not Earl Spence versus Sean Porter. That's not...
Joshua Ruiz was in the United States.
That's one.
Yeah, he doesn't have a ton of big fights in the U.S.
And that was also something that they needed Al Heyman stable to bring in. Like, think about it. You needed a U.S. conglomerate to come in here and give you an opponent that could be a good B-side.
Well, they had the other, the juice head. What's his name?
Miller, yeah.
The big dude. Yeah, big baby. And that fell out.
But I mean, think about it. One guy fell out, and they had to fall back on. They had to go to a U.S. conglomerate and corporation to help them. I think in some aspect, if you're talking about Canelo Alvarez in the U.S., fighting in the U.S. against a U.S. fighter, Eddie Hearn's not the established name in this situation here. He's not. Al Heyman's far more established in this market than Eddie Hearn is. And I would argue that, from what I remember of Canelo's lawyers, they're long-time entertainment business lawyers in this sport, in this industry. Like, he has people on his side that know how to run a business. Okay? And look, Canelo, I think, is a natural promoter in some fashion. He's not Mayweather, but he's definitely a lot better than Manny Pacquiao in terms of self-promotion. So I think Canelo Alvarez, like the idea, like he doesn't want to promote himself. No, I don't think that's accurate from what I've seen. We know from his last promotional deal that he didn't want someone to ruin his brand. So why would you let someone else control your branding? It just doesn't make sense to me. Even if it's Eddie Hearn and you trust him more than Oscar, it's still allowing someone else to control your narrative and your brand when you are far bigger than that person, especially in this market. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Digressing though, speaking of Pacquiao, Pacquiao said he wants to fight Mikey Garcia next, though Terence Crawford negotiations are still open. We all know that latter part's a lie. But it does look like he's going to fight Mikey Garcia in the next 6 months, I have to guess, Gary. I think this fight happens in the summertime, if I have to predict. Thoughts on this fight happening? Thoughts on Manny Pacquiao wanting it? And explicitly stating in an interview, I want Mikey Garcia.
So maybe Mikey Garcia was right when he said that the Pacquiao fight was going to happen next. Possible.
And that COVID obviously threw a huge monkey wrench into it.
This fight doesn't. It's fine. Like, it's good to see Pacquiao again. It's good to see Mikey Garcia again, right? But like, if Pacquiao wins, he's still not the best welterweight in the world to me. If Mikey Garcia wins, he's not the best welterweight in the world to me. So it's a good fight. I think it's an entertaining fight, but I don't think it really determines much in the division. Because we already saw Errol Spence destroy Mikey Garcia. So what would Pacquiao beat him doing? Right? If you put Spence ahead of Pacquiao now, and Pacquiao beats Spence, Pacquiao beats Mikey Garcia, who cares?
It's still a fun fight.
It's a good fight. It's fine. Yeah, no, it's a good fight.
It's not like he's fighting a complete no-namer. It's not like it's Joshua Clottey.
Clottey had arguably beat Cotto. Clottey had beaten Judah, and he had fought a war with Margarito. That was on Showbox.
Still, Mikey is a better fight.
Clottey was good.
No, he wasn't.
He was paid to take a dive in that fight, but he didn't want to get didn't want to get knocked out, so he just didn't throw any punches. There's a lot of something happened in that fight, right? Because Clottey was good, and then he threw no punches. And the other time he threw punches, he landed beautiful uppercuts. It's like, something's not right here. I want to get to the bottom of that fight. Like, he hadn't gotten a big payday. Like, the Margarito fight was on Showbox, so I don't think he got paid a whole lot for that, even though it was a great fight. The Judah fight and the Cotto fight, he was a B-side on. Probably didn't get big paydays for that. And Bob, I was like, look, here's what we're going to do. That payday you deserve, I'm going to double it. You're not going to throw a single punch. And then you're going to disappear for years.
My guess, it wasn't Aram specifically. Because Pacquiao's too connected to, like, how to say it. He's too connected to oppressive death squads in the Philippines for, like, Aram to be the guy to, like, intimidate Clottey. Like, it'd be probably like
it's not an intimidation thing. It's like, I'm going to make you rich. Okay.
I don't think it was that. I think it was you will disappear. Seems far more likely.
Does anyone think that Clottey fight in the chat, that Clottey Pacquiao fight was on the up and up? That's how the fight went down, with no interference.
Mad Dog H in the chat is saying that Clottey had an ear infection and all the noise from the crowd was hurting him. That's why he kept his hands up. I don't know any of these, like, stories.
That was in Dallas too.
Oh my god! That was one of the Cowboy Stadium fights, right? That was
I didn't go to that one. The Margarita one was too, and I went to that one. The Margarita fight was great.
Well, I mean, it had to be better than the Claudia fight.
That was. I'm glad I watched that on TV because that's the famous Jim Lampley bang 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 call.
Obviously, I mean, when Manny Pacquiao brings up Terrence Crawford, we all know that's bullshit because we all know who Terrence Crawford's fighting next now, right? Josito Lopez. Ranger Rollins, aka Deuce from the Sunday Puncher podcast, is saying sources Josito Lopez is the current front runner to be Terrence Bud Crawford's next opponent. The bout was previously muted last year prior to Top Ranks tabbing Kell Brook for the duties. And I do remember the fight was being negotiated at one point. Jamel Herring is saying in the replies, I forget where it was in the replies, that this is the first he's heard about it. Obviously, teammate Terrence Crawford. He's heard 2 other names, though. So clearly, Crawford's next fight is not official and it's not done yet, but there are a few names being broached here. Gary, your thoughts on Crawford versus Lopez, Crawford versus somebody else? Are you hyped?
Lopez is a good guy, and I'm glad he got the payday to fight Keith Thurman, right? Like, he deserves it. He's a good guy. He's always a good fight. But now he's fought Thurman and Canelo. He's gotten his paydays. He doesn't warrant a fight with Terrence Crawford. He's not that good, right? Like, I don't know why Josito Lopez would get this fight. I want the best for Josito Lopez because he's a genuinely nice guy. Like, he's genuinely nice. But he doesn't warrant the fight, and he's gotten his 2 big paydays. He's got a Thurman fight. He got a Canelo fight. Like, let's get a better opponent in than Josito Lopez.
Gary, I mean, how do we save Crawford? Like, do we need to go rescue him from Bob Arum? Like, what's happening?
I guess this means Ugas and Spence, which isn't done, is kind of done because they not even.
Man, we knew that. Well, that was always going to happen, regardless of Crawford. Yeah. The hope was Crawford was going to fight Sean Porter, right? Or
that's right. Yeah.
Somebody else. I mean, anyone else. But Sean Porter got offered $1 million, which I bet Lopez got the same offer.
That's what I'm saying.
Dude, Crawford fans, like, explain this to me, please. Because even if it's not Lopez, it's not like Herring's out there saying, like, oh, no, like, it's a much better opponent. He just said it's 2 different names he's hearing. I guarantee those 2 other names are not better than Josito Lopez. Right? I mean, who else is there? I mean, it's
Avanesian.
Oh, fuck no, man. Please.
Do you think I'm wrong, though?
What?
Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think that's not the name they're mentioning?
I mean, that might be a name that's on the table. Especially if the fight's in May. I mean, he has enough time since the Josh Kelly fight to recover and have a training camp, right?
Tyrone McKenna. Is he a welterweight or junior welterweight?
Junior welterweight, I believe.
Right. Well, they're bringing him up.
Where's Colazo at?
He's talking a lot of trash on Twitter.
Is he?
He always does.
I don't follow him on Twitter. Oh, that's hilarious. Man, I don't know, man. I mean, the only fight I want to see is Sean Porter or Earl Spence, and neither one's happening.
I'm just looking at these names at 147. Like, Abakadorov?
No, he's fighting this weekend, man.
Right.
And he's an IBF Mando. He's not going to give that up. That's a direct shot at fucking Earl Spence, man. Right? I think it's an IBF Mando.
It's the IBF? Yeah.
Pretty sure it's IBF Mando.
Yellen Yusinov? I mean, none of these guys are really ready.
Rashidi Ellis? Ooh. I'll be hyped for that. I'll be honest. I know I shouldn't be.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't be, guys. I know I should be like, no, Spence Crawford. But fucking Crawford Rashidi Ellis would be fucking amazing. I would be so hyped for that. You have no idea. Obviously, we have Jared Enos versus Lipinets next, so they're off the table.
Right. That's what I'm saying. None of these names really.
Jesse Vargas?
That's the one I was looking at. Yeah. Who do you think wins, Jesse Vargas or Josito Lopez?
They fought way back in the day, right?
Oh, you're right. Wow. Yeah, you're going way back in the day on that one.
It felt like 2010-ish or something like that. Some shit like 2011. Yes. Vargas won a split decision. That was
Yeah.
a time ago, man. They fought again. Probably pick Vargas. He looked really good against Mikey Garcia. Like, honestly, he looked really good against Mikey.
I'd probably agree with that.
He just got beat up by the power of Mikey, and I don't think Lopez is like that much more powerful. And he's obviously a way less skilled boxer than Mikey, so I'll probably pick Jesse Vargas slightly. Thomas Lorme is not going to fight because they already fought back in 135,
and it wasn't close then.
Not at all. Not at all. People actually disrespected that win so much too back in the day.
Alexander Vesputin, but did any of these names any of them have any intrigue at all?
So sad. I like how we automatically skip the top 10 too. Like we're not even mentioning Jamal James.
Alice,
though he could be a name. Honestly,
he could, but if they're gonna work with PBC, I don't think it would be on Jamal James.
He's a Felix Diaz Jr. type where they could loan him to Top Rank. Absolutely.
Alessandro Rigaccini.
Let's stop. This isn't fun anymore.
Did you see I put he's got a fight coming up? I put it in the group chat. I don't remember who it was against.
Curtis Clayton.
There's a name.
He did. I mean, he did honestly beat up Sergey Lepinets, man. He low-key got robbed in that fight. Not really robbed because it was a draw, but he should have got the nod in that decision.
In what fight?
Lipinets.
Who are you saying should have got the decision?
Curtis Clayton.
I remember it being really close. Do you thought Clayton won?
I thought Clayton edged it.
I thought it was close. I don't remember who I had. He might. I remember thinking a draw wasn't unreasonable. I don't remember. I think I had Clinton winning. I think I did.
It was one of those fights though where I was like, whoa, completely shocked that it was that competitive. So
yeah.
I might have gave some rounds to Clayton when I shouldn't have, but I thought he looked fantastic, man. That was a eye-opening performance from a prospect, to be quite honest. And a Canadian prospect. We rarely get those. We get more Australian prospects than Canadian.
We do. There's not a ton of Canadian prospects.
Adonis Stevenson. The greatest Canadian fighter of all time. Sorry, Lennox Lewis. What am I saying?
Lennox Lewis.
What
Donovan Razor Ruddock.
Was he Canadian?
Yeah.
I didn't know Ruddock was Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
There's been a few Canadian fighters.
Canadians and Midwestern people are the same person. Am I wrong?
I don't even know what that means.
They're all the same. Think about somebody from Minnesota, and it's somebody right across the Canadian border.
I see what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
Steve Molitor was from Canada. There's been a couple of Canadian fighters. I was gonna say Jason Litzau, but you're right. He's from Minnesota, not from Canada. Was the American boy, right? Jason Litzau. Oh, that was Minnesota.
Them and the Dakotas, man. They all sound the fucking same, man. I love them. I love that accent. It's hilarious. Anyways, digressing. Where are we at? Okay. Gary Russell Jr., guys. He has a fight. And it's actually a fight I'm really hyped for. Gary Russell versus Ray Vargas have agreed for a title fight. I mean, first off, Ray Vargas, I think, not finally getting a big fight because he's had big fights in the past. He's had good fights. But this is truly if he wins this, Gary has to finally put some respect on his name. Right? There's no way you can argue against it. If Ray Vargas wins this outright, right? It's not controversial. There's no injury, right? There's no shenanigans, right? It proves that Ray Vargas was the goods at 122. And that he just didn't really get the push, didn't really get the recognition. No one really paid attention to him when he was there. Because I think this is a little bit of a trap fight in some fashion. Gary Russell's looking at Gervonta Davis, at people at 147 pounds. He's looking at people that are just not even in his ballpark of relevancy. And Ray Vargas is a talented rhythm fighter. He's not perfect. He is not a pure boxer. He's definitely a rhythm pressure fighter. Not even the best rhythm pressure fighter, but he is rather efficient at what he does. And I could see this being a tough, close fight. And one that Ray Vargas does pick up the nod. I'm very excited for this matchup. Gary.
I put in Twitter, y'all want to see what one-way traffic looks like?
Stop.
This fight.
Stop.
You said Ray Vargas isn't the perfect fighter. He's far from it. Gary Russell Jr. is the perfect fighter. Like, he's the closest thing we have right now. Like, Gary Russell Jr. is so good. Like, if I'm wrong about this, like I was wrong about Dubois and what was the other fight that I said you were? There was another fight. Where
There's another one. I can't remember it. Dubois is the one that comes to mind, but we were both like massively wrong on that one.
So Valdez, right? Like,
well, that's probably that's probably.
There's no way the other guy's gonna win. There's no way Ray Vargas wins this fight. I think Gary Russell Jr. beats him up so bad he stops him. Like, he'll stop him late from a culmination. Like, he's not gonna ice him, but the beat down is so bad that they stop it late in the fight. 10th round, 9th round, something like that. Like, it's that bad of a beatdown. Like, it's that one-sided.
I'm predicting it right now. I'm predicting it. We enter the second half of this year with 2 massive upsets, and the featherweight division completely changed. Obviously, Josh Warrington just lost to Mauricio Laura. I think Gary Russell's going to lose to Ray Vargas, and we're going to have a completely new division. It's going to be a new era, and we're going to move forward. I'll be quite honest. It just feels like that in some fashion. And plus, look, Gary Russell is a talented fighter. Let's not get it twisted here. He is not a perfect fighter, though.
He's got the best skills in the sport, besides Canelo. But Canelo's slow. He doesn't have the speed that Russell has.
Gary, if you
just had to take one fighter.
Gary, if you meant that, then you would put him at number 2 pound for pound.
I would, but he doesn't fight anybody. He fights once every 16 months. I can't put him on the list.
And even the people he does fight do give him issues. Are we acting
one guy, Jojo Diaz,
no. All right,
a perfect fight and won 4 rounds.
Are you acting like King Tug didn't give him issues too?
King Tug didn't give him issues. Get out of here.
Stop. These
are good fighters.
And Ray Vargas is
King Tug and Jojo Diaz both beat Ray Vargas. Now I know Jojo Diaz is way bigger now, but like 126, the Jojo Diaz that fought Gary Russell Jr. beats Ray Vargas.
No.
Ray Vargas beat Azit Hosenishin, so he's fantastic. I know he beat Negrete too. I get it. I know.
Yeah, don't you dare respect Negrete. Come on, man. What are you doing here?
Gavin McDonald, the guys he beats, they're fine.
You have bigged up the McDonald's so much on this show. And you know it.
They're not Gary Russell Jr.
No. They're definitely not Gary Russell Jr. I'm not saying that, okay? But this is a perfect trap fight. You have a guy that doesn't fight often, that has had a run. Eventually that run ends, right? Like this.
If Gary Russell Jr. loses this fight, I'll come and do something embarrassing. Like I'll walk across the Brooklyn Bridge in my underwear or something like that. Like there's no way Gary Russell Jr. is going to lose this fight. Now I know I'm jinxing myself, right?
And plus, like, I'm wondering, like, is this the fight like I want to do like a hair bet on? Like,
that's how I'll do anything but that.
Oh, you fucking, you fucking wuss. I would shave my head if fucking Ray Vargas lost. No, I wouldn't. No, see, I can't do that. I can't. I love my hair.
You're that confident that Ray Vargas is going to win this fight?
No, I'm not that confident either that Ray Vargas would win. But I do think it's a trap fight. Like, Ray Vargas is good. I think he can definitely pressure up Gary Russell. And Gary Russell has, in my opinion, clearly not been focused on this division. He's not focused on the sport in some fashion, in my opinion. And at some point, you do lose. And I think Gary Russell is due for a loss, if that makes sense.
I think Ray Vargas is well overdue for a loss.
That's
undefeated, right? Ray Vargas doesn't have any losses, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have any losses. You're absolutely right. And maybe that is the case. But it would be more understanding if he loses to Gary Russell, right? It's not a trap fight for Ray Vargas. It's just a tough fight. He's moving up a division. He's fighting but not arguably. He is the best guy in the division now, especially since Josh Warrington just lost. And he's a guy that is a very talented boxer.
So
he has the top. You know, like
Ray Vargas is able to cut the ring off on him, keep him against the ropes, keep him in the corner, and work him over. Is that how this?
I mean, Joseph Diaz did that, and King Tug did that for large portions. Gary Russell does sort of get lulled into fights. Like, he does sort of get lulled into inactivity within rounds. So it is possible. But Gary Russell is also very good at the back half of the fight. Like, he's really good at adjusting to an opponent and changing up his strategy and tactics to become more efficient. He's very good at that. So most likely, Ray Vargas picks up a huge lead in the first 4 or 5 rounds. Pressure, volume. Gary Russell's not really trying to adjust to it, right? And then Gary Russell wins the back half of the fight. That is probably what's likely, right?
I mean, that's your path to victory. I don't foresee that happening, but yeah.
No, that's path victory for Gary Russell, isn't it?
Like for Gary Russell?
Yeah, I mean, you survive, you weather the early onslaught, the 4 rounds, 5 rounds of pressure. You adapt to whatever he's bringing to you, work for traps and angles, and you try to.
Yeah, I don't think Vargas is going to win the early round. I think Gary Russell is going to counter him to death because.
But Gary Russell usually loses the first few rounds. He did against King Tug.
Against Diaz. That's one time.
And King Tug.
I'm going to go back and watch the King Tug. I don't remember him losing many rounds at all. Maybe 2 or 3 total in that fight.
He lost for sure at least 3 rounds.
I'm going to go back and watch that fight.
And they were probably the first 3 rounds too.
All right, maybe.
I would say. And I would argue that Ray Vargas is better than King Tug.
I would argue King Tug is better than Ray Vargas. I would argue Joseph Diaz was way better than Ray Vargas.
No. He beat no one. The only person he beat that was of note was Jason Velez. Honestly, who did Joseph Diaz beat? Rafael Rivera? Whoa, man. Oh, he did beat Andrew Cancio. That's not bad.
That's a good win.
That's a good win. But Oscar Negret's better. McDonald's better. Even though they're at low weight classes, we're not saying that McDonald would beat these guys just because of the weight discrepancy, but in terms of just relative to the division, Ray Vargas has better wins. Absolutely. And he did look impressive at 122. I don't think he looked that impressive in his debut or a couple fights at 126, to be quite honest. But I always thought he looked really good at 122. I always wanted him and Emmanuel Navarro to fight, to be quite honest. And Emmanuel Navarro's fighting. Who's he fighting? Oh, Christopher Diaz. That fight's happening in Florida. I forget the date.
Yeah, I'm looking at Manuel Avila, Rafael Rivera, Cancio. I mean, there's nothing Cancio.
It's good. It's good, like top 15-ish, top 20 guys.
Oh, Rene Alvarado. He beat Rene Alvarado?
When was that?
2015.
Damn. Way back in the day.
Yeah.
Dude, Renee's been around forever, though.
Yeah, and then before that, it's nobody's.
Shout out to Rene Alvarado. Not the best Alvarado, though. That is definitely Felix.
No, definitely not.
But Rene is good. Quality opponent, that's for sure. Jay in the chat saying Ray Vargas hasn't fought in 2 years. Dude, no one's fought in like 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, neither has Gary Russell Jr., right? I mean,
yeah.
It's a year and a half by the time the fight happened. The Ray Vargas fight was early in 2020 before the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you're going to hit that trend a lot. Like, a lot of guys didn't fight. Yeah, for over a year.
Jonathan Kidder in the chat bringing up 10 farmers on this division. So, I don't think you really
Well, I was talking about the Jojo Diaz prior, right?
Yeah, 126. From my 126. Yeah. Anyways, moving on. Where were we at? Jamar Herring, who I mentioned earlier, his fight with Carl Frampton is now official. April 3rd in Dubai. So, Daniel Kinahan can be there. MTK can be there. Good to see. Also, just to bring the Daniel Kinahan, conspiracy theories, air quotes. The Canelo Bellijo Saunders fight is not going to be on Sky Sports. And Eddie and Matchroom have denied that it's obviously in connection to Daniel Kinahan. Even though Bellijo Saunders has been outwardly saying, no, I love me some Daniel Kinahan. I love the Kinahan cartel. They do great stuff.
Daniel Kinahan? No, never heard of him. Don't know who that is.
There's been reports that the networks and sort of brands overall in the UK have been trying to distance themselves from people associated with the Kinahan cartel since the documentary. Gary, any thoughts on that? Especially in connection with Herring Frampton's for sure going to Dubai because of the MTK connections. Let's be quite honest.
I'm just saying.
Do you see some fights having to be?
I don't think this bodes well for Herring, right? Like Frampton's an Irishman, right? Frampton's Irish, right?
Yeah, Northern Irish.
because Herring's not going to knock anybody out. Like, I don't think this bodes well for Herring. That's all I'm saying. Like, you might want to bet on Frampton winning by robbery. That's all I'm saying.
I wonder about. My question was going to be: do you think we're going to see more fights sort of be stained by the Canelo connection, lose network options, lose sponsorship options, have to be exported out of the country in some fashion, right? Like Jamar Herring, Carl Frampton's not in the UK, it's not in Northern Ireland, it's not in Ireland, it's not in the US, it's being flown over to Dubai so they can sort of hide it from everyone, and Kinahan can be involved. Like, do you see like because there be more attention on this connection in the sport, that certain matchups are going to be have to be adjusted, so to speak, because of it?
They've put too much sunlight on it at this point, right? Like everyone, it's out now. Like they've been too public about the Kinahan connection. So yeah, kind of, and it's going to stain the fights too. Like, if anything controversial, anything weird happens in the fight, and maybe it has nothing to do with Kinahan, but you know, like if John Gotti was promoting fights in the 90s in New York and weird things happen in favor of the Italian fighter, like you might look at that as a little strange. You know what I'm saying? Like,
people in the chat saying it's just because it's DAZN's launch in the UK. First off, DAZN has been in the UK for some time. That's just not true.
Yeah.
Like Rob has like 50 free months of DAZN in the UK because he just gives everyone a referral. So shout out to Rob for gaming the system. So that's just not true, people. Secondly, it's been reported that Sky didn't bid on the fight. That's the report. That they passed on it.
Because of the Kinahan connection. What other reason would there be? To not even bid on it.
That's the assumption. Yes. And I think it's obvious. Like, you have Bill Joe Saunders, who's clearly a advertiser nightmare, right? He just is. I'm not surprised Sky Sports wants to distance themselves from the cartel connections in the sport or the matchups, specific matchups. I'm not surprised. Now, it'd be funny, of course, because they're not going to do that for AJ Fury because it's just too much money, right? Canelo Saunders isn't that level of money in the UK market. That's the reality. Shout out to capitalism. Gary, any other thoughts?
No.
But I would be worried for Herring in terms of decisions in Dubai. I do agree with that. But he should win, to be quite honest.
He should win. Yes, but that doesn't. I mean, I think Frampton by robbery is a good bet.
I hope not, because I think Herring should win wide here. If not, get like maybe a late finish. I know he's not the most powerful guy, but Frampton's a guy he's clearly on the last legs of his career.
Yeah, but I can't see him getting stopped, especially a guy who gets a non-puncher. Like Frampton's tough as hell.
Yeah, but like the guys he's known for fighting aren't the biggest punchers too, though. The biggest puncher Frampton's ever fought was Nonito Donaire, who clearly should never
been at the weight class, at
130, right? That's clearly a factor. But Leo's not a big power puncher; he's a volume puncher,
right?
I can't. Who else is Frampton? Like Scott Quigg, he's not a power puncher. And not that Herring is a power puncher, but you have Frampton clearly at the downhill side of his career. His face has worn a lot of wear and tear. He's been cut up a lot.
Cuts, maybe.
I could see him his face being beat up a lot. It's round 10. He's behind on the scorecards wide, and doctor stoppage, or they want to just save the damage. I could see that absolutely. But Herring should win wide. I think he's far and away a better fighter in this division than Frampton. I've never liked Frampton at 130. It's never made sense for me. He's way too small for this weight class. And he's kind of been lucky that he has been matched up tough at 130. Moving on, Devin Haney, Jorge Linares. They've agreed to a fight, Gary. It's happening in May. Devin Haney getting paid $3 million for the fight. Linares getting paid $2 million, I believe was the number. Reported by Mike Coppinger for those monetary figures. Gary, thoughts on Haney and Linares and the obvious big money fight it is, right?
Good for them. I guess will be it for Linares. He'll take his $2 million and chill. And I mean, I can't believe this is a $5 million pot. God, gosh, that's a lot of money.
Got just for comparison's sake here, people. Okay, in 2017, okay, before the big DAZN boom and ESPN Plus boom, right? Before the streaming wars began for boxing, Thurman Danny Garcia in a unification in the money weight division of the sport was a $4 million pot for a disclosed purse. This looks like it's gonna be $5 million for a disclosed purse.
I just keep having that. I don't know if you all remember Chris Rock on Saturday Night Live. Good Lord, that's a lot of money, right? Like I saw that. I was like, good Lord, that's a lot of money.
Dude, prime, like young Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle, like that era of comedy was something special. It really was. Like from the late 80s to like 2000.
Yeah, about 2000, yeah.
Was just fantastic. I'll give 2003 too, because like the Dave Chappelle show alone, it's worth its respect. And I want to say I heard a rumor that the Dave Chappelle show is coming back, and like Netflix got Chappelle the rights to the show back, so to speak. Did you hear that rumor? I
have that, but I hope it's accurate. I love Dave Chappelle.
Right? Because like obviously, Netflix got the streaming rights to the Dave Chappelle show, and then Dave Chappelle went out and said, "Hey, I don't make any money off of this. Can you take it down, please? Because like I got screwed over with contract negotiations." And Netflix kind of obliged him, right? They said, "We're taking it down."
Yeah.
It's back on. Like Dave Chappelle show is back on streaming on Netflix. And so the rumor is that they got him the rights, and they're going to be another season of the Dave Chappelle show, which would be amazing. Oh my God. That'd be so good. Anyways, back to Devin Haney, Jorge Linares. Haney should win here. Linares is clearly another faded veteran who's had knockout losses recently, such against Pablo Cesar Cano, which was obviously a massive knockout loss in the first round, right? I don't know if Haney's going to win a knockout here, but he should win just because he's the fresher fighter that's clearly on the rise, one's on the decline. But this is a name. Like, this is a credible fight, in my opinion. Like, I'm excited to see this matchup because I've been wanting Haney to fight someone of note, whether it's Javier Fortuna or Linares or Comey or anyone that like we kind of care about. I've been begging for that to happen. So it's here. I think it's being grossly overpaid for, but that's just my opinion. Get your money's worth. If you're gonna get that in the market, if someone's giving you that check, take it. But I thought DAZN was going to lower their purses. I don't know what happened to that.
Not for Haney, at least. Yeah.
I kind of get it if they're thinking of like Haney is that long-term play. Like in 10 years, he's going to be a superstar. If that's the thinking, I get it. Because you're investing a lot of money and you're thinking to get that all back in some fashion. But man, that is you're hoping here. And it's looking like that hope is being a little bit unwarranted in some fashion with Haney's performances as of late. But hey, if he comes out here and blows out Linares, that hype back on. Right, if he knocks out Linares within 6 rounds, Gary, the hype for Haney in the boxing community is right back to where it was in 2018, 17.
He stops him on cuts in a one-sided fight. That's my prediction. What does that do for him? Anything?
How long does it go?
7-8 rounds.
Wins every round.
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, yeah. It's Devin Haney. It's classic. It's classic boxing by Devin Haney.
I think he needs a finish. I'll be honest. Not
race against time.
It needs to be exciting. It needs to be exciting.
Jorge Linares' face busts open. It's always been his downfall.
This needs to be exciting to some degree. And then Haney needs to drop a awesome promo after the fact. Like call out Teofimo Lopez, call out Gervonta Davis. Like you got to drop a promo after this fight. Because you're slowly, if not quickly, becoming the odd man out in a division that a lot of people touted you as the next guy. And not only within this division, but within the entire sport. You need to quickly change this, narrative that's forming in the division. Jay Prodre in the chat, I like this. Me, I always like talking about business. Teofimo Lopez against Kambosos, fighting for $6 million in the pot. Haney fighting for $5 million. I don't know if your inflation went up or not. Dre's from Canada. No, inflation didn't go up. The market got inflated, and it's been inflated for years. And they said it was going to go away, right? We had Joe Murkowski out there saying that we're going to lower down the purses. We have to get back to like reasonable levels, I think was the term he used. But for certain fighters, I think you've opened that Pandora's box in some fashion. Like Devin Haney, Teofimo Lopez, these guys are never going to be paid less than what they're getting right now. Like,
there's no going back. Yeah.
There's maybe marginally less, right? But these specific fighters that are getting these massive paydays and seem to continually get massive paydays through this massive boom in the market, that's not going away for these individuals. Even if the market crashes and the bubble bursts, these individuals have now got their asking price and they will stick to it. And they should. You might see a overall decline in purse amounts in boxing. That might happen, of course. And we might have already seen it in some fashion. I haven't looked at purse numbers and analyzed it in some time, to be quite honest. Last time I did a real in-depth analysis on boxing purses was 2018 or 19, probably. So things have changed, obviously, with COVID. Maybe it's different, but clearly not for these big-time A-listers. Or perceived A-listers, right? Like I bet like Andrade's purse got diminished, but not Haney's.
Right.
Moving on, Joseph Parker versus Derek Chisora is going to be a UK pay-per-view, and that is the last topic of the show. Gary.
Also, Hector Tanahara is out of his fight with Machado.
They said it was an illness. Does he have COVID or something?
Yeah. Well, Dan Rafael reported it was COVID.
Oh, he did? I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I thought it was an illness.
I think he was sick, and then they tested him early, and then he tested positive, I think, is what happens.
Okay.
Like he was showing symptoms, and then they tested him. What does that mean that whole gym now is going to be? There's a lot of fighters in that gym. I don't know. That's something to keep an eye
on. Yeah. Anyways, guys, that's going to be it for today's show. Make sure you guys hit the like button, share the show, subscribe, all of that fun stuff on YouTube, patreon.com/Trending Now Network, Trending Now Network on Cash App as well if you want to support the channel in any financial way. I'll be back on Monday being interviewed by Southpaw Podcast on Patreon. Go check them out. Go support. Really good show. Trending Now Network, General Strike Podcast episode I should do another live stream next week sometime.
Let's do a show Sunday because I'm going to be out of town this week. This week coming up.
Well, yeah, we can do a show Sunday.
Let's do a show Sunday because
it might be a different time, so I'll keep you posted on that, Gary. Don't worry. So Mixed Time at Radio Sunday. I'm being interviewed on Monday by the Southpaw Podcast. Check them out, and let's say that General Strike Podcast on Wednesday next week, covering all things politics and theory. I have finally, Gary, finished Capital Volume 1. Finally.
Okay.
My mind is fried.
You did? Okay, yeah, that was...
My mind hurts, Gary. My mind hurts. You have no
I would have got the Reader's Digest version of that.
It was a lot.
Cliff Notes.
It was a lot. It was very interesting, though. I'll be honest. Like, it was a better description, obviously, for 1,300 pages and definition of capitalism than I've heard before. It really, I thought was informative. And if there's definitely sections I will recommend to you, Gary. I'm not going to recommend the whole book to you, of course.
I'm not going to read that whole book. I promise you.
There's a couple chapters that you can definitely just read in isolation.
Yeah.
I bet you'd be really fascinated on because it's just really even though there are times where like Marx critiques capitalism, most of it's just here's what capitalism is. Here's how it functions. Mainly at the idea of production level. Like how does production work? How does that function? That's largely what it is. And I think it's probably the best description of capitalism I've ever heard. Like it's better than Adam Smith's, which I've read, like Wealth of Nations. I think it's deeply archaic. Ricardo, I've read. I think other people. I've read like Libertarian. Economist.
So like the Libertarian go to our Hazlitt's Economics in One Lesson. my brain is fried. Road to Serfdom.
Yeah. Yep.
Then Murray Rothbard.
Yeah. Yep.
Like those are kind of the gospel of anarcho capitalist economics and libertarian economics. Those are the ones that everyone is kind of steered to. Like, start with those.
Yeah, I'll be honest, Gary. I think like you're gonna read a section and go like, yeah, this is exactly what it is. Because like it just describes capitalism exactly how it is, and the necessity for surplus value production, and the need for those that own the means of production, owns the commodity production in a sense, that then can go into the market and acquire labor value. Like that is, in a sense, a lot of what capitalism is. But anyways, we need to do a debate show, Gary. Like we haven't done one in a while.
We haven't. We
need to pick a topic or like a couple topics to like keep ourselves organized in some fashion. Maybe it's a reading we need to do, and like we can read something that's short, obviously, and compare it and talk about it, whatever it may be. But I want to do that again, Gary. That was always really fun. Anyways, find me, Matt Hunter MCR, also social media platforms, link below in the description. And remember, at all times, ladies and gentlemen, fuck the police and free Palestine. And I will add this for Gary's sake. I know me and Gary agree on this. Abolish all states. Have a great day. Gary?
Find me all forms of social media, 3D Boxing blog. It is March 11th. Ivan Calderon is still not in the Boxing Hall of Fame. That needs to change. Let's get the Iron Boy in the class of 2021. Texas is still not a country again. Let's make Texas a country again. From Texas to the world, thank you, and God bless.
Peace.